Hello, everybody. If it's Wednesday, well, this week it's not Warhammer. It's a little Warhammer, but it's more Rain and Iron because that's right. Tonight we're going to be talking about Uncle Adam and I's newest game. I mean, Tom was involved too. I don't want to short him. He's here. Tom is also here. He was involved in the project. Actually, Tom had a lot more work to do with this one than he normally does, to be fair. So much to his own chagrin. Tom was angry because he had to actually do work this time. Usually my design that I turn over is so pristine, it's very light work for Tom, but this time he had to work for it, and then he got all huffy. But yes, we're going to talk about a little Warhammer and stuff like that, but we're going to mostly talk about Rain and Iron, the newest game. We're here with Uncle Adam. Adam, how you doing, buddy?
Oh, it's been a week, but otherwise I'm fine.
Okay. Okay, sounds rough, but I'm glad
Yeah.
you're fine. And I get that same instinct as I was sitting on an airplane yesterday, just trying to get home and beat the storm that was going to hit Chicago and shut down the stupid airport. And then the pilot comes on and says, "Oh, we got a minor maintenance issue." And I was like, well, I'm screwed. That's it. We're done. Call it. It was only an hour delay though, and we still beat the storm. So it wasn't that nice.
It's not too bad.
I believe the minor maintenance issue was a light bulb was burnt out because I watched the guy change the light bulb. This is a fun Vince traveling story. I was the only one I'm sitting there on the plane. I see this guy come in. It's like there's a light right above you when you walk in, like through the door. Yeah. So it's like where the crew is normally standing, where they're giving you those little alcohol white pads or whatever. And the guy comes in, he unscrews the thing, swings down, and there's some kind of U-shaped fluorescent bulb up there. And he's trying to get it out. And I'm watching him try to get it out. I'm sorry, guy. If you happen to be the guy who did this and was watching this, I'm sorry that I'm about to tell this story. He cannot figure it out. Okay. And everybody else in the plane is just looking at their phone, and I'm looking up and down the aisles, and I'm staring at this guy, and I'm like, how am I the only one watching this? And because he fights with this thing so hard, what does he do? Snaps it in half. Yeah. And so then he's not wearing goggles or anything. So just LED fluorescent bulb or whatever it is, just shards rain everywhere. Okay. And then he bends down and starts picking them up one shard at a time. I'm like, dude, really? We don't have a small broom? You can't open the door to the bathroom 2 feet behind you, grab a couple paper towels, soak them in water? Have you never broken a light bulb before? Is this your first time? It was insanity. I watched this go on for 10 minutes until he eventually got it in there. And I'm pretty sure that's what was delaying us. Anyways, that's just there's a crazy story from Vince's travel stuff. And nobody else seemed to take note of this. Even when he broke the light bulb, nobody looked up. Nobody was saying anything. I was just I live in crazy town. Anyways, all right, that should have bought enough time for everybody to get here. Welcome to the show, everyone. We're going to talk about Rain and Iron tonight. All right. Okay. Let's say, yeah, but Haiti said budget cuts. They can't afford the broom. That's right. Yeah. Got to go for can't get that going. We do have a little bit of news. Let's start there. We'll go through the normal stuff in the show still. We have a rumor engine. It's a 40K thing again, and a useless 40K thing. It's a little stoplight with bumpies. It's a little bumpy stoplight. That's what it is. Bumpy stoplight. I don't know what else to say.
That is I don't know. Necron?
I mean, could be.
I don't know.
Could be.
It looks clubbish.
Yeah, it could be like an electro club. It's got some kind of tube running into it, right?
It's 40K.
It is. Dude. I am so sad. Oh my God, John Shaves literally said Electro Club and typed it in 2 seconds after I said Electro Club. That's what it is. That's what it is. That's the new option. It's 40K. We've literally gone all the way backwards. Adam, you and I make fun of 40K all the time for you're on a battlefield where people are firing guns that have the impact velocity of a modern tank, right? And you decide that the right weapon to equip yourself with is a chainsaw.
Yeah. Right? No, it makes total sense.
And the Electro Club is so funny to me because it would just go all the way backwards, right? To the first weapon, club. Like a caveman weapon.
If the Electro Club, if you could push one of those buttons on there and it could shoot out some electricity, I mean, that might be kind of cool, but really, what would be even cooler would be to just use a gun, because then you don't have to mess around with this stupid club with the electric. I just, you know what I mean? Like, I just,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know. I've always thought in any kind of even vaguely modern battlefield, if you are in hand-to-hand combat, you've made some mistakes. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like that. This is
That,
not where you
yeah, we
should
don't put
be.
bayonets on the end of M16s or whatever, M4s.
Nah, not really. No. So yeah, I don't know. I do they
soldiers do carry knives, to be clear, because sometimes
Does-
close combat happens. But
well, sometimes you got to open the pudding packs and stuff like that. I get
Sure.
that. What does anyone else look at this besides you guys? I've never seen these before. Where do you find them? Do
the
they get-
rumor engines? Is that what you're asking? Nope.
Yes,
It's on the
yes.
community site.
Yeah, it's just on the community site.
Oh.
Yeah.
See, I almost never read the community site these days. That's probably part of my problem.
Yeah,
But that,
every
like,
Wednesday.
they just do this to get people to talk about it.
Yeah.
I mean, assumingly, but they're usually so boring that they're not even worth discussion. Like, this is the problem.
Right.
We've been doing rumor engines now for 10 years, and they varied. Sometimes they get on a run where they do some pretty cool stuff where you'll be like, oh, neat, that's clearly a this thing.
Like, does this work? Like, they must have had, if they've been doing this for a decade, there must be metrics that show that this somehow
There's engagement.
makes sales.
People must click it. I don't know what else to say other than people must click it.
Yeah, I suspect that it is it's hot on socials, right? Because it's one of those easy things. Like, because they don't actually show you they don't show you the thing on socials.
Right.
They show you like a box with a question mark.
Oh,
and they're like new rumor engine, or like new rumor engine image.
You can't give away the cow for free by showing them the actual rumor image.
Correct.
In the actual, no, you got it.
Yep. Yeah, and so I'm sure the click through on that is just stellar for them.
Yeah, it must be.
Yep.
Huh.
And most of the time, it's trash. Sometimes, like the Underworld warbands have always been the best, like the Underworld and Warcry stuff, because we'll look at that and be like, that's clearly Nighthaunt, or that's clearly Seraphon, but they just got a book. What's up with that, right? So then, like, it generates a bunch of discussion as to what this is and how it could fit in, and all of those questions. But those are the good ones. That's
how long is the release cycle from the time you see a rumor engine till the time that you
sometimes years.
Yeah,
sometimes like
2 months to usually 2 months to like 6 months. There's a website that tracks all of them and then populates what they are once they get solved.
It's true.
That's a bummer.
There is the oldest one that's never been solved that's still there. It's from like 3-4 years ago, like 2021, I think is when it's from. We all know what it is. It was the second incarnate. There was going to be like a second incarnate, the big dumb fire dragon head monster thing. I don't know if you've seen this, Adam, or not. But anyways, in AOS, there was this thing called incarnate. It's like a summoned monster. Okay, so it's not something you paid for.
Yeah.
I mean, you did pay for it, and now you don't, and blah, blah, blah. It's a long story. It doesn't matter.
Sure.
Anyways, it was a weird summon monster magic thingy. They were going to do a second one, but it was so unpopular. Like the first one was so
The first
unpopular.
one was so powerful. Yeah, and so
it was so powerful and so hated that they just shelved the second one. And we're like, no. They're like, literally everybody universally hates this. So
I mean, that's good. They at least pay attention to that stuff. That's
good.
No,
it's like they made the right move. Good. Like they didn't give in to sunk cost fallacy. Good for them, right? Like, I mean, I'm sure they'll look for an opportunity to rebox it whenever they find an army they can shove it into in the future, and that's fine. Then we'll all see the sprues that say like 2021 on them.
Sure. Yeah, I was going to say, it'll be 2038, and all of a sudden you'll be like, hey, look at this new stuff, and you'll be like, well,
wait a minute.
But to be fair, well, I guess the question is whether or not they actually produced the models. If they just made the molds, they could go back in and change the date.
That's true. That's true. I don't know how, like, obviously that's information I don't have, but clearly they had at least like they do 3D test prints for like paints and stuff like that. Sometimes on these rumor engines, you'll see 3D print lines because the painter got, the early copy, which makes sense. They have to give them enough time to paint it. Some of these things are massive projects. And so who knows whether or not they ran a full run of it or not? Who could say?
Yeah.
I like to think of like somebody running down to the factory being like, stop, and like hitting the big red button.
The big
just
button.
Like,
yeah.
Everything comes to halt and they're like, pull it out.
It's the stop the presses button.
Yes, exactly. Okay. Yeah, they at least had the 3D printed tester. Yeah, exactly. Cygnus. All right. Next up. Hey, coming on pre-order this Saturday. They're finally here. teased for 20 plus years. Cathay is coming to the old world, the big Cathay army, which might as well just be AOS news. Like, it is old world news, but it might as well just be AOS news, because this is like half the Cities of Sigmar armies you're going to see going forward are going to be these models. Okay.
Yeah.
Because like they're just 1-to-1, Adam, for Cities of Sigmar, like almost down the line.
Yeah.
So
you have
they
like
made
a cannon unit and a shooting unit and a like an infantry unit.
Yeah.
So but do they sell them with the, like they used to back in the day, where you got a square base and a circular base?
It's all
No.
old world. Like
It's all
so
old
it's
world,
all
so it's just square bases,
old
but
world.
you could just put them on the, you just buy bases, you know. So
Right, but I mean, so like they've said they didn't do that, but they did make rules for Age of Sigmar for Cathay.
no, they did
No.
not. I wish they would have. That would have been cool, but no. I'm saying they'll all just be proxies for Cities of Sigmar. That's what I'm saying, because
Yes.
like
every
model wise, they're 1-to-1, and people are just going to buy them because they look so much cooler than the Cities units.
I didn't think you were supposed to proxy. I thought they would go to Games Workshop jail if you proxied at like an event, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, no, because those would be fine, because you're still using GW models at official GW tournaments. They generally don't like third-party models standing in for your
which
stuff.
we don't really have here in the States. Right. Like
exactly.
maybe Worlds.
Everything's
maybe
independent here in
Worlds
the
would
States.
fit, but almost everything is independent. So it's not something that we fear.
Mm-hmm.
So you just it's so exactly like your steel helms are these infantry guys on screen, because you can have like a little sword and shield, and the cavalry look like the knights or whatever, and then you've got your big cannons for your cannon batteries, and like you've got the extra ogres that you could just use as your fusiliers guy, and just like, and so on and so forth. So
I like a lot of the Cities of Sigmar models.
oh yeah, they're not bad.
The new ones, yeah.
They're not bad. I just think these are now. Here's what I'll say: these models are so crazy detailed. A bunch of people are going to buy these with the intention of making them into cities armies, and then paint one of them and be like, nope. Just they will nope out so hard. These models are crazy detailed.
I felt like the cities guys, the steel helms and all that kind of stuff, because I've got
they were
spearhead. They're pretty detailed too, right?
Oh, you're not wrong.
Yeah. Right.
They are super detailed, but these guys put them to shame. They have like layers. Each infantryman is wearing like
under like a leather thing underneath, and it's serious.
He's wearing a short sleeve shirt under a long sleeve shirt under a short sleeve shirt. He's completely diffused my teenage cynicism. So you know, that's what they're all doing. They have like armor, and then a robe, and then more armor, and then cloth on top of that. And it's just like they're layered up for the winter. Or like me at any given day, where here I am wearing like 4 layers right now. Somebody commented on that in a show. They were like, does he have a t-shirt on under a long sleeve shirt under it with a vest and then an apron on? I was like, yeah, I do.
I don't know. Does the apron count? I don't know if the apron counts.
It's there. I mean, it keeps your legs warm. That's one of the reasons I like it.
Do you think we're going to get Kislev? Like full on Kislev?
Yeah. Yes. I mean, that was kind of the original thing back when they
were advertising.
Were starting it. They were talking about Kislev and Cathay. So I'm sure they were already partially into it when their funding got, pulled back. But that Cathay will sell like gangbusters, and they'll do Kislev in a year or two. Martin Orlando with a super chat. I made a homebrew S2D army and took it to Warhammer World for the 4th edition launch GT, and it got best painted. Proxies the GW product are fine. Yeah, exactly. Because Martin's army was all GW. They were all proxies, but they were all GW models. Right. So that they love. They love it when you, and I've seen several armies like that. Not to
when you buy them more of their kits.
Yeah. Like there was a Skaven army some years back that was, super crazy proxy heavily converted, but it was all from like GW kits, and it got they put it in articles and everything. They were like, this is amazing, right? They want you. They would love it if for every unit you put on the table, you bought 2 boxes to smash them together. That's really probably a best case scenario for them, right? So little stinker. I suspect that was just a rumor. I have no idea like what that'll amount to. I mean, it's in the end, all these things that are like not China and not Russia, not Italy, not Egypt, it's the old world. Anyways, okay, so that's all that stuff. There you go. We'll save that. We really didn't have much else in the way of news this week. I mean, we talked about it for like 5 million years, but it's all right. Okay, cool. Let's do some pick of the week, shall we? So Tom, what would you like to direct everybody to this week for our pick of the week segment? What video or post or something like that would you like to talk to everybody about?
Yeah, I've been spruiking Lords of War for a while, and so I'm gonna hold off this week, and I'm gonna
twist.
I'm gonna cross promote your stupid podcast with John. It was pretty good this week, folks. They did a new episode on Magic and Magic System, and it's worth listening to Vince just bitch for an hour about the Magic System.
You know how I know I'm doing okay with it? We're doing an okay job, Tom? Because I got both you and Jonah commenting on it, like genuinely, not just sarcastically. So that means you were honestly listening. And if I can rope in the two of you, then I feel like, you know, two of my harshest critics, then I feel like I'm okay.
It's fine.
Yeah, sure. So yes, the newest episode of thank you very much for the shout out. The newest episode of Fireball the Gazebo going in. It's our Ninja and I's RPG podcast is out now. You can find that linked down below. Yeah, go give it a sub. Go give it a listen, especially if you are interested in magic in RPGs and D&D. All right, Adam, what do you want to share with everybody?
I don't have any good answer for that. The one thing that I saw this week that at least made me that was gaming related that made me perk up a little bit. Let's just say that I backed a Kickstarter, or maybe it was a Game Found. I don't remember. It was a long time ago, and it's from Wargames Atlantic, and it's a project called The Damned, and they're basically like, I don't know, super modular chaos kind of Trader Guard sort of type dudes a little bit, but you can do with them what you want. And they were supposed to ship last year in May, and now they're like, well, they're ready to go, and you'll probably see them in late July. So at least that's something. So I'm looking forward to that. Because I do have some ideas of things I want to mess with them. Although at this point I kind of forget what they look like. So that's I don't know. I don't know if that helps at all, but that's
fine. That's cool.
That's what I got.
I got two little things I want to share here. First off, since Adam is here, I would be remiss if I didn't say that also this week, the newest episode of Snarlcast is out now. Uncle Adam and I go into grisly detail on how we make our games. So if you've ever wanted to know both how we do it, but more importantly, how you might yourself do it, we talk about other options and things like that, what you want to look for. Like, we're trying to give you steps and a guide if you ever want to make your own game.
It is how we definitely how we do it, not how it is done. You know what I mean? Like, it's definitely, yeah, we don't want to tell you this is the way it should be done. We're just telling you this is the way that we do it. It may not be right, but it sort of works. So that's good, you know, right?
Yeah, we're not Mandalorians. We don't have it. We don't have the way. So, you know.
Right, exactly.
Fine. Yes. So that would be number one. Number two would be, there is, speaking of Game Found, you mentioned it earlier. This last week I had a video come out for Paradise, for Mindwork Games, for their new Game Found that's starting on July 4th. In the video, I think I said it started today because that was the original day they were going to start it, but then they decided to move it around for internal logistics reasons, so it'll actually start on the 4th. But yeah, check that out. It's the Paradise stuff is really cool. The figures are all great. I have another one actually sitting right over here to paint at some point in the future. They're all cool, like post-apocalyptic. Like, they'd be very Necromunda appropriate figures. But they're all cool, like post-apocalyptic chicks and stuff like that. A lot of them, there's a couple guys too, but I like the ladies. Like, they're just really nice figures, and They got a cool aesthetic. They're effectively shrunken down, like they're resculpted 32 mil, 28 mil, whatever versions of some of their bigger characters they've done in this Paradise line they've had for a while. They had like busts and 75 mil figures, and they were great. I've painted several of them. I really liked them. So, I mean, here is another one that I keep beside me. Like here was one of the larger scale ones that I kind of work on every so often. And so yeah, they took the same characters and shrunk them down. So check it out. Paradise on GameFound. You can follow it right now, by the way. So there you go.
Is it subtitled by the dashboard light?
It should be, but no, it's not. They called it a waste punk game, which I thought was neat. I don't know if I'd heard that term before.
I like that term.
That fits very well. I liked the I like the aesthetic. I like a good like mad. It feels kind of Mad Maxy, right? That's really what I would say.
Sure, yeah, makes sense.
I dig that aesthetic. Fonzie, thank you for the super chat. Perfect timing for the live stream as it'll distract me from building these awful Doomfire Warlocks. Really need Sisters of the Thorn for conversions. Thank you, Fonzie. Doomfire Warlocks are terrible. That's why I refuse to build them. I know Tom also converted his, which is what he's about to talk about.
Yeah, I did. And they're great. So you should convert them too.
Yeah, because the base Doomfire Warlocks are awful and dumb and should not be used. There you go. All right. Let's talk about some hobby time. What we've been working on. So, Adam, I'm going to start with you this time. What you been?
Okay.
I know you're painting all the time because Adam has his weekly Twitch stream twice on Monday and Friday. If you're not checking out Tabletop Minions over on Twitch, you certainly should. It's a great time to hang out with Adam and just chill. He answers a bunch of questions. He usually doesn't paint as much as I think he would hope to because he's usually so busy just interacting with everybody.
Well, I mean, yeah, conversation and chat, it's important to kind of keep that up. So it doesn't necessarily, it's not as productive as me just sitting there, listening to a podcast and painting, but that's fine. It's not about getting things done. It's about having a conversation and talking to people and maybe being able to show some tips and tricks and things like that whilst I'm painting. So I've been working on Robot Legion stuff for one-page rules. As it turns out, even though I'm a skirmish guy pretty much through and through, I'm somehow also going to be painting, at the very least, an army for one-page rules Grimdark Future. Admittedly, 1,000-point army, and also 1,000 points of Grimdark Future are far fewer models than 1,000 points of, let's say, Warhammer 40k, but still. So I'm working on that. And
have you seen these robots, Tom, by the way, that he's doing? Have you seen the one-page rules? They're cool. I think you'd like them. They look like they have like General Grievous heads. They have like these weird spy versus spy, like long pointy heads.
And they're all kind of hunched and they have capes. I don't know why a robot needs a cape, but it looks cool.
Yeah, they're like Grievous.
Yeah. They're cool. But they only got the one pair of arms. They don't have all the extra arms and all that stuff.
That's true.
But so they're cool models and I'm working on those. And then I'm also currently working on some terrain. I mentioned a couple weeks ago in one of my videos about how I've got this painted Necromunda terrain, the Zone Mortalis stuff, and I have it's built and primed. That's as far as it was, and I was in this kind of analysis paralysis situation where I wasn't sure what to do with them. They were built and primed brown, and that sat there basically the entire winter. Two tiles that are, and I'm not just using the tiles and then modularly sticking stuff on top. I'm gluing the stuff down before I prime it. So instead of like messing around with all these different chunks and bits, it's just like, this is the scene.
Yeah, sure. Just one thing. Yeah.
Exactly. So, but I forced myself over the analysis paralysis last weekend. I basically just was like, well, but what if I just started dry brushing everything silver? And then that looked like trash. And then I went through and started painting all the tile floor square bits back to black with some grim black speed paint because it's very quick and covers quickly and all that kind of jazz. And then I kind of took the next step, and then I took the next step, and then now I'm starting to go through and make everything rusty. So I wanted to find like a good rust kind of thing. I'm trying to figure out exactly what
so many options. The world is rich with rust options, that's for sure, in the hobby space.
But I wanted something that seems like a rust wash, because I want it to like collect in the crevices and then kind of get lighter, that kind of stuff. And so I did a bunch of tests and came up with a very simple recipe that I actually like quite a bit. So I'm probably going to be, that's going to be my video this week, actually, is how I did that. So that's what I've been working on as well.
Nice. Now, Tom, you sent me some pictures, or you sent some pictures. It wasn't just me. You shared them in our little group chat of you just living the dream. Your wife reached out to me to see if the color scheme she's working on was approved, was Vince approved. And I said it was for sure. It was a good set of colors she chose. And you sent some pictures of her sitting there. I appreciated, by the way, that she was like referencing one of the pictures you sent. She was like referencing the book, like she was looking at the color scheme in the book.
So we're sitting there
like
and I'm
understand
building.
what to do.
Yeah, so we're building, and like I look up and she gets up and she walks over to the bookcase. And like it's like a IKEA bookcase, and it's like first edition, second edition, third edition books, and then the first couple fourth edition books on that shelf. And she said, "Is the top shelf the newest or the bottom?"
Sure.
And I was like, "The bottom?" She goes, "Okay." Grabs the IDK book, goes over and sits down and starts flipping through. And I was like, let it go. Like,
yeah, sure.
She's doing her own thing, doing her research. So I was like, cool. Yeah, she's killing it. She is starting with the Spearhead Force, or the Spearhead Force.
Yep.
And then gonna we have a bunch of IDK that we picked up a while ago, and she's finally getting around to painting it, and she's enjoying it. So
good.
And I've just been building,
You're building a bunch of kits, right?
Oh, so many. So I did all my Lumineth, and then I did a bunch of Stormcasts for my son and I. And then I'm finishing up all the Spearhead builds of the other armies that I still have outstanding. Like, my goal is, up until they started re-releasing new Spearheads, I had all the Spearheads like built and ready to play for Spearhead. Like, I have a bookcase of Spearhead stuff. But I'm like 6 or 8 Spearheads behind because they've released like a whole bunch.
Yeah, sure.
And so I've been like I have the models. I just need to put them together and assemble them into a tray for those armies. So that's what I've been working on.
Nice. I love exactly what Hades said. Somebody's using the tome as intended, right? Like, they put those pictures in there so you can reference it and be like, oh, okay, I put this color here and do this and this thing. Like, they have painting instructions in there. I love that somebody was really using it, because like I certainly I'm not reading those. But I'm glad, like, it shows that is valuable, especially for newer people. So it's great. My hobby time, I finished up this guy right here. He's finally done. I'll load him up on screen there. So this is that little dwarf that I've been painting for a while, of the Spira Mirabilis. I don't know how you say the name. Bust. So he's all done. And he was very fun. I got a couple different angles here. You can see how he looks. But yeah, I think he came out pretty cool. I like the lighting, I like the drop shadow. So, there were some things that I'll admit I got to the very end on and was like, yeah, it's good enough. Like, he's probably not going to competition in any way. So I was like, that's fine. Like, we can only take this so far. But I thought he came out really cool. And I certainly feel like he was a good progression on things, especially on the skin there. I really do think he looks like he has great old weathered dwarfy skin. So I like how that came out. Anywho, yeah, John, you've completely left off his legs. Yeah, exactly. Oh no. Oh, so much more to paint. So I finished that up and did a couple of other. I did a little figure too for a video, which will come out in the future. That had to do with some new paints. I have many new paints I need to experiment with right now that I'm working on, but that was for one of them. And then once I got all that out of the way, I finally got to turn my attention to the big project that I've been wanting to do for a while. And so that is this right here, which is, you're not gonna be able to see it all because it's not primed. I'll cover up this light for a second. Okay, there we go. So this is Snakeheart from Mindwork, from their Brahm series. And I took the 2 figures and changed them around some, like their positioning. They were normally much closer together, like uncomfortably close together. He has a little chain. You probably can't see it. It's kind of swinging there on his neck. Shout out to Bob Calhoun, who finally cracked the code for this. I've been wanting to do this for a while, but I just didn't know what I wanted to do. And he said, well, because I said, the figure's like 2 figures. It's like an evil lady and like her and some big, strong protector guy or, whatever. It's kind of Conan and a sorceress. And he's like, well, you should recontextualize it. Make the guy like the servant and make her the strong figure. And I was like, yes, I love this. So I turned him dead, which meant I had to make, again, there's no way you're going to be able to see this, but okay, on his arm, you see on his left arm, those little green lines? Can you see these little lines up on his bicep? Yeah. Okay. Those are like green stuff because I wanted to make him dead, like Frankensteinian. So he has stitches holding flesh together, and then I'll use paint to do the actual line in the flesh. So there's a lot of work, just changing little things around, cleaning it all up, making the new little base, the background, all of that. But yeah, got it all together today, ready to go. We can officially begin the painting. And this is very exciting. Like they're both just such good figures, mostly skin. Couldn't be more excited. That's what I love. Just give me tons of skin to paint. So that's my hobby time. I got one final quick story to share with you. Adam, you won't care about this, but Tom, this will be interesting to you. So Tom, we reviewed the battle plans last week, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
You remember Paths of the Fae? The one where you pick up and teleport and set things back down. The
stupid teleporty one. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I played that this weekend. Played a couple games this weekend. Okay. It was good.
I can only assume you had a blast.
It was a very silly game. That scenario is so much worse than we even described during the show. Okay. Because one of the things I came to realize after my opponent purposely set himself to underdog by 2 points, so he could then activate that ability. Okay. With my core hammer unit was then I was on going first, like if the turn order preserved, then I would go first, right? So either he double turns me, okay, or I go first. That's the choice, right? Like if I win priority. So I'm more likely to go first, right? But you can't move your models off of that circle that you get placed on in the first turn of the battle round. So if you go first and you set your models here and they set their models there and then they go second, your models are stuck on that circle. They're going nowhere unless they have something to charge. I think they're still allowed to charge for the way it's phrased. But that's it. So as long as your opponent's not stupid and doesn't literally put something in counter charge range, right? Or charge range or slash counter charge range, you literally are just stuck there. And then they can just march around the board. Whatever your strongest unit is that they I didn't even think about it. I had my big hammer unit on like touching an objective because there was 5 objectives on the board.
And that's what you're supposed to do, right?
I mean, one would think. And nope. So that hammer unit sat there for 2 turns until basically he just decided to go deal with it. And the only way it got dealt with was I let him double turn me. That was the only way I was getting to actually be able to move half my units again ever.
Wild.
I had to let him double turn me, like give him the double turn, which I suffered for gloriously. That being said, it was still a very close game. I lost, but it was like by a couple points in round 5. So otherwise crazy. So that was the sad part. Happy part, I played the Slaves to Darkness Oops All Heroes list. So I had like 10 heroes on the list. Incredible. So much fun. Like if I wasn't hooked to Skaven this season, this is the list I would roll. This list is wild fun. Exalted heroes running around. I turned one into a demon prince like that because I had the new trait that like when that guy dies, you get 8 points, right? Pulled that off. Little exalted hero becomes a demon prince. Oh man, it was so much fun. It was ridiculous. Just crazy heroes running around. And like when there was like times where I managed to get up against a hero and be like damage 3 and rend 2 or whatever, where they just go nuts for 80 points. Very, 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 very fun list. So would recommend 10 out of 10. It felt great. Yeah, I lost the drop war, but I had nothing but units. Board control was exceptional. So anyways, All right, enough of all this. Gentlemen, shall we turn to Rain and Iron? I think we shall. Okay. Hey, Adam. What's this Rain and Iron thing? What is this?
So, Rain and Iron is a standalone sequel to our first game back in 2021, Rain in Hell. Short elevator pitch is that in the first game, the humans had sort of come in and messed up hell. Had the people of hell, the beings in what we call hell, had been coming over and messing with humans for quite some time because they had the ability to do so, and then eventually humans figured it out, went back, and then took away their ability to do so. So the fighting has been going on between all these groups of demons to figure out how do we get back, or do we even bother to get back. I mean, there's different philosophies about what needs to go forward, and that was the point of Rain and Iron, or sorry, Rain and Hell. And then in Rain and Iron, it was all about there's been a philosophy that has kind of taken over, and they've found a new portal that brings them back, that can allow them to come back to Earth. And so they've decided to come back to Earth and to mess some stuff up and to mess up the humans. And then they get there and realize that the humans aren't there anymore because it's been a lot longer than they thought.
That's right. Time
And
is
all's
all
left is-
wibbly wobbly, timey wimey over there in that
Well,
dimension.
I mean, have you ever seen in any of the illustrations or any of the stuff that we did in the first game, did any of those guys have a watch?
That's a good point.
See, so nonetheless, yeah, they came over and they come to Earth, and it's just all robots, and yeah, that's what happens. So it's now demons versus robots. Robots, by the way, don't have souls, so that's kind of a problem as well for the demons, and they're bummed about that. So that's the idea behind it is really that it is a, how am I trying to say this? The idea behind it is that it is a game that is designed to be very different. I mean, it's using the same kind of engine to some degree as Rain and Hell, but it is definitely the robots basically only shoot, and the demons still are all about hand-to-hand combat. So it's got a very interesting kind of dynamic in that it's all shooty guys versus all handsy guys, and that's a different kind of thing that you don't see necessarily all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. So, by the by, everything for Rain and Iron is linked down below. It's a simple link. You can just go to rainandiron.game.com. Links right down there. Check it out. While you're looking at that, there's also the Snarlcast and the Fireball with the Gazebo. The links are right there. It's all three of them. Just do all those things. Absolutely. Yeah. Cygnus said he's really looking forward to the prequel games to this, Rain in Bronze and Rain in Stone. Absolutely. Yes. That's where we introduced the Electro Clubs, Cygnus. That's bring that back right around. Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about this from like the very beginning. This was kind of the idea of what I wanted to do, right? I said, if we continue this story, because we wrote the Oculus Sphere, and that was about the time we had the conversation, right? We really didn't plan on doing a sequel, but then the Oculus Sphere happened because we launched Rain in Hell. It was during the pandemic. We realized, oops, we need solo and co-op. So I was forced to write like a story, like a narrative story, and I left the story on a cliffhanger. And I was like, so we kind of talked about that. And I said, well, I want him to go back to Earth eventually. It'll be the Earthbound that figure it out for obvious reasons. They're the most determined on it, right? And when they get back, I want them to be like, yes, we're here. And they look and it's just all robots on the other side waiting for them, right? I just really enjoy that sort of irony, I suppose, that twist, whatever it is that, yeah. What a twist.
It gives the story more, I don't know, I feel like it gives it a bit more meaning, even though it's maybe a touch nihilistic, but that's fine. I think that maybe is the important bit. Yeah.
I feel like it's a very on point story to our current world we live in. That's what I'm saying. The AI one.
Yeah, I mean, like the first game, all of our games, whether you realize it or not, they all kind of have a theme to some degree. And I don't just mean like, oh, it's this happening, melee versus range combat or stuff like that. I mean, there's usually a deeper meaning. And Rain in Hell was initially about how basically like humans have a tendency to screw things up when they decide to try to fix things, or whatever. And because they basically, they wanted to stop this from happening, the demons coming over to Earth and pulling people back over. So they just went in and just destroyed the leadership of this dimension of hell, and then also broke the door on the way out, And so, and in this one, it's more about like, okay, well, now the humans have been replaced because of their own stupidity. And so, yeah, it's I don't know if I would call us humanists necessarily. I think that we have a clear idea of what's going on sometimes, and then
Sure.
that maybe comes out in the games.
Yeah, I mean, there's always sort of things that are under the surface. Like one of the ideas in the original Reign in Hell was absolutely like, and it's true again here, by the by. Like the philosophies aren't just pulled out of my tuchus. Like they're sort of the danger of real world philosophies like that taken to extremes, or what they end up, the dark sides of them, or whatever, the other side of the sword, perhaps. The funny part to me, Adam, is we spent so much time in the lead up to this book talking about like what exactly we're going to do with the humans, right? Like we knew there's no humans, but like how much of a point do we want to put on it? Like, did the robots kill the humans? Okay. Like, am I playing, if I am playing robots, am I playing something that killed all of the people? And my answer was no, they're like later generations of robots, right? In the same way that like, you weren't part of the group of people that wiped out the Native Americans who lived here, right? Like that was, you know what I mean?
That happened a long time ago.
Like, yes, it was right. Exactly. And so like, they're just generations removed. And so to them, it's just like a story, same as anything else. Right. Like they have different memories of how things work, but whatever. Right. And so we talked a whole lot about like how fine of a point to put on that and how we wanted to handle AI and all that. And like the story that actually came out is relatively simple and straightforward in how it's addressed from this like first person narration. And nobody's asked me about it at all. Nobody's asked me in all of this, like, so what's up with the humans, or what happened? What happened to the humans? What did they actually do? How did they die? Did the robots kill them? Not people just take it at face value. They're like, yeah, that makes sense. They all died to the robots. I think everybody's just in the place right now where they're like, nah, that checks out. No further explanation necessary.
Like, reality.
Yes.
No questions need to be asked in that situation. Yeah, and I think, and to be perfectly frank, like when we started coming up with this idea, it was at least a year before all of a sudden. I mean, people have been talking about AI for quite some time or whatever, but like the real ramp up kind of thing that's going on these days, we were kind of ahead of that. I mean, the game didn't come out until we were already kind of deep in it, but when the idea came around, it was not like driven by the news. It was driven by I don't know what, but it definitely mimicked the news sort of quickly. So there's that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because I mean, I originally pitched this to you as like the potential sequel in like 2021, right? So I mean, that's long before the first LLMs hit the market, as it were. So yeah, exactly. All right, Tom, I want to swing over to you. Okay, so for those of you who know, Tom is our developer on this, so he does all the like math and stuff to make sure that the game works. So, Tom, as Adam mentioned, this is a game of ranged combat where one side is almost exclusively ranged, and melee combat where one side, the demons, are almost exclusively melee. So, I have a story of how we balance that, but I want your take on it as well first. I want you to talk about kind of some of the work you did.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it was a question of inches, right? Like everything was it was a lot of time spent like mapping out sequencing on ranges and movement, because you needed, like, it needed to happen. Like for me, it was almost a purely like playtesting games aren't fun in general, because what you're actually doing is you're trying to dissect and understand how the things work underneath. And so in order to do that, you're not like, yes, there's variables and rolling dice and the like, but what you need to know is like on the surface how things are going to respond and the incentive structures that have been created.
Right.
And I just say that to say that a lot of time was spent with a mat and models and like numbers charts.
Right.
Right. thinking through like sequencing and range and how much can you get in a force and what's the distance and what's the casualties and just understanding so that both sides statistically have a pretty good shot upon engagement. Right. Yes, it will skew one way. Yes, it will, like occasionally you'll have those games, but we all have those games when we play dice games, right?
Sure.
Like that just happens. But
I also played a Suns versus KO game this week, and that was over very quickly.
I imagine so.
Way. KO just destroyed me, and that was the end of that game. So
that makes me sad.
No obscuring for monsters, homie.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I mean, what I would say is that so I don't have stories per se, right? Sure. Because so much of what it is like Math Hammer in one sense, but it's not just about looking at minimums and maximums and stuff like that. It's actually about massaging. In this, it was mobility versus range. That was the real question, right? And so when we got in and we began tinkering with numbers, it was always, this is 1 inch too far.
Yeah, sure. Right? So a lot of little changes. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, like, because again, this
combat's like 1 too high, which is allowing that unit to overperform at range and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so it's a really silly like reality, right, for a game like this, because it is so stuck in comparatives, right? The big question is, what is the mobility comparison versus what is the weapon range comparison?
Yep. By the way, Robert from the Miniatures Paintbrush said, "Hey there, guys. I'm planning to do a bat rep on Rain and Iron this week." Hey, that's awesome. Thank you, Rob. Appreciate it, brother. I'm glad you and your new wife are having a great time playing Rain and Iron. I saw you guys getting into some stuff there on the Facebooks. I hope you're doing well, brother. Yeah, I want to point out one other tricky thing that I know Tom is aware of. But so in a game like 40K, one of the where you have the range versus melee conundrum quite well pronounced. And like, to be clear, when I originally pitched this at Adam and said, hey, I want to do this game and I want it to be one side is all ranged and one side is all melee, Adam was suspect, to say the least. Okay.
Sure. I played Tau back in 5th edition.
Yeah, which is fair, right? Like I'm not questioning you should have been suspect. That was the correct response.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But I realized that one of the problems that always happens with this is that it only measures on one axis usually. So what I mean by that is like the way that, even, and this comes up in AOS with range still, right? Units do what they do. And generally the only thing you can do is either shut the shooting unit off, right? Or let it be on. And so like in 40K, they solve this with the big giant elves. Right. Mm-hmm. So you can't just like start and blow the enemy unit away because they're all huddled behind chest high walls effectively. Right. It's the classic. Was that game Gears of War or something? Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so the problem is that like the firepower, the capabilities of the unit doesn't really change over the course of the game. Except to occasionally, sometimes units can go down in efficacy if like they're diminished in some way. But usually the ranged units are at full power until they get caught and killed. Right? So they go from 100% efficacy to 0%. Like, mm-hmm. And that's more or less what happens. So either they blow you up or you get to them in time and kill them. And I wanted to avoid that paradigm. So in this game, one of the things that I wanted to do was add an XY power axis, and the Y axis is time. Okay. So over the course of the game, the units are changing in their efficacy. And so it became a secondary journey to see who would get there, to how that would perform. So for like the demons, we mentioned there's no souls. They don't have souls here. The robots are soulless. But the demons have adapted and figured out that they can steal charge from the robots, which is a little less, it's like kind of filling your car up with like what was it, like pure corn whiskey or something, right? Like it's not as refined, but it'll get the job done. Okay. And so like the demons need to get into melee to gain charge. So they can't gain it beforehand. Right. But once they do, they can gain it quite rapidly, and it makes them very difficult to kill effectively. Whereas the robots have machine learning. So they get more dangerous every time either they critically hit or are critically hit. And that makes them not more durable, but more dangerous. Okay. So it increases their capabilities. So as the robots are losing people because they're getting jumped and they're weaker in melee and they're losing people, the remaining robots are scaling up in efficacy to then it becomes a match. Like the time race is then, are the demons powering up faster than the robots are powering up, right? Because the demons are going to lose something on the way, people on the way in. So they start here, then they kind of go down as they lose people, and then they ramp back up. Whereas what happens with the robots is they start lower, right? And then ramp up as they start to kill people, and then hopefully we slow the fall, right? So it looks like two crisscrossing sine waves, basically. So adding in the time element was, I think, the key there. That is a good point, Jim Crimmins. If the robots learn, why can't they figure out Electro Club again? Yeah, they should look into that. The robots are intelligent. That's why they use ranged weapons. They figured out that guns are a better weapon than claws. So there you go. So yeah, that's the basic stuff. Okay, cool. The game itself has, like, as with all of our games now, it has solo, co-op, and skirmish play in it. It's very important. So if you want to play against your friends or with your friends or alone, that's all fine. It has a full campaign mode in it, as all of our games do. I'll be honest with you, Adam. I don't know if we're ever going to write another main game. Like, this is an interesting thought experiment for a minute. Are we ever going to write another main game? Like, that is to say, our book release. Because every year we do both a main book release as well as a small game in Snarl in our yearly zine.
I like to call the Snarl game a micro game, because if you call it a mini game, I mean, all the games are mini games because they're mini for miniatures. You see what I'm saying?
I
So
do,
that's why I've
yeah.
been thinking micro game in the zine in the fall, but in the spring game, our main game, that's always something that you can get printed and the whole deal. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So will we ever do like a main game that doesn't have like solo, co-op, and skirmish as well as a campaign system in it? It's hard to imagine. I think I just like those three things as concepts.
Well, I think that to some degree, there's definitely, I mean, there was more of a hole in the industry for solo games and co-op games. There just wasn't that many of them within wargaming. You see that kind of thing coming around, obviously, again in
Board
there's
games?
solo well, I was going to say solo role playing.
Sure.
There's all kinds of like journaling games and things like that I hear about. I don't know about a lot of solo board games. Are there solo board games? There must be.
Yeah, I mean, there is. There's also obviously like co-op being the real push, right? Like the co-op space in board games has been massive for a while now.
Yeah. Because then there's nobody who gets their nose out of joint at game night, when you're there with your I was at my local shop. This was several years ago, before the pandemic, and a guy walked in, the owner of the shop who I'd been talking to. He was talking to somebody else, making a sale, whatever. So this guy comes in and just assumes I work there for reasons. Why not? And he's like,
you just look like somebody who works at a game store, I guess.
I guess, yeah. And he's like, so I need a board game that is for 5 players and it is co-op. And I was like, you've got a gaming group, it gets real shirty if somebody starts to win too much, don't you? He's like, yes, that's exactly the I'm like, yeah. And so then I basically read the back of a bunch of boxes and said, well, these ones say that they do it, because I don't know jack about board games, as it turns out. So I just know most of them are generally versus, right? And in the miniature gaming space, a lot of times it's versus. And I think that the reason for that is mainly just because it is a pain in the butt to write single player and co-op AI.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
It is.
Yep.
Yeah.
It is.
And
this is also an area where Tom has had to do a lot of work repeatedly, as in like making sure the AI actually makes sense and functions correctly.
So, I think that what happens is a lot of people just go, well, we'll just make it so they have to play against each other and we won't have to worry about it. And I get that. But yeah, I think that I think it's a niche that we're doing okay in. I think that it's also not as weird of a niche as it used to be. I think you're seeing a lot more miniature games doing solo and co-op. So, I mean, GW made solo mode in the most recent version of Kill Team 2024, and I strongly believe it is a direct response to you and me specifically. So,
Of course, I see no other options. Absolutely.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Jim Crimmins. Like solo board games, like campaign dungeon crawls, things like that. Yeah, sure. Gloomhaven, Frosthaven were obviously huge deals. I think most people have turned to those as like they're great. Those have become like really successful co-op board games, right? Like that's just where people get together and once a week continue to play through the game. Is also like we messed with it a little bit with Space Station Zero with like a very tiny way. But like legacy board games, another thing that I wonder, like if there's a way to explore. I'm interested in that. Like that's sort of bouncing around in my head for somewhere in the future of having a legacy war game where. So like you know what I mean by legacy board game, right? Like when something
right, like
happens,
Risk Legacy, I think was the first one possibly, and that was a game where like when certain things happen at some point, then you change the board, you put a
right?
sticker on it or stuff like that, and then next
Yep.
time you guys play, that's the change that's been made to the. It's like a persistent world kind of RPG video game, except that it's and then a lot of companies started jumping on that legacy kind of like legacy became the term for it, right? Because that wasn't really a term before that, before Risk did it that I know of. There may have been somebody who did it before Risk and Risk stole it from them, but that's deeper than I go as far as board game lore. And I think it is an interesting concept. Part of, a little bit of what we did with Reign in Hell with the title system, like that we brought into it, so that with certain demons could get these kind of titles, but it would still be just within the campaign.
Yes.
I think what you're saying is you want to make some changes that once this campaign's done, now something is different when next time you do a campaign.
Correct. Yeah. Like, and to the point where even rules change. Okay. Like it'd be really fun to have like a page of stickers and like you literally like, okay, you've done this now, print this out and put this sticker over page 36, paragraph 2. And like, that's the new rules for this thing. I think that would just be really interesting to do. I don't know if it's something we could ever do, but it'd be cool.
I would never do it. I think that's the concept behind legacy games. I don't know. There's a part of me that like looked at Risk Legacy at the time when it came out. It was maybe $45 USD.
Sure.
And I was like, all right, so you're going to play this and you can only play it X amount of times before basically it's all used up, sort of. I mean, I don't want to say it sounds like a subscription kind of, price structure for board gaming, but it's a little bit of a subscription price structure for board gaming. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's something that like if I was the person who owned the book, I bought the book and then I got the sticker that I'm supposed to put on this page, I'd be like, or maybe I just won't. I don't know.
Yeah, you can always just not. That's the thing. But
yeah, that's true. That's true.
I think it's interesting because I think it's admitting of the I feel like it's admitting of the reality that like one, as we always talk about, we're not looking to have a game that's like your new lifestyle. Right.
Yep.
So like I know with any of our games, there's only a certain number of times you're going to play it. Right. And so if I can dramatically change the play experience in some way as the game is happening, I don't know, that sounds kind of interesting to me. Right.
I feel like it's an overarching, like if you made campaigns shorter, like because like how many games do you get in a game in a campaign of Space Station Zero? Because there's what, 24 total.
Yeah, there's 24 total. You go through an average of
you don't
17.
hit them all.
Yeah.
Right, because it's a branching narrative. So if it was, and then some of the games are just like, just play till you get tired of playing. You know what I mean? Like there's,
I mean, that's
the first one.
That's a lot of games. Like that's most.
Yeah,
most of the games we write don't have a defined endpoint, right? I mean,
Right.
Space Station Zero is almost. Majestic 13 did have a final narrative scenario you could choose to play that ended the story, but that didn't stop you from playing the game. Space Station Zero had like a true endpoint, like you're done now, and there was a minor legacy element to like depending on how you got through it. I'm not going to spoil anything because it is a thing, but depending on how you got through it, it would change the rules of your next run through the space station.
I think it'd just be interesting if there were slightly shorter campaigns, but then an overarching kind of persistent world that has to do with the campaigns, whether it's maybe, I'm basically like, if you're a little
and now we've just invented role-playing games, so that's fine.
Yeah, well, to some degree. Yeah. It's just more steps. But yeah, something like that where you've got this group and they go through and they do X amount of things, but then they don't start again. I guess that's the point. So it's not that now this crew goes and plays another, run at it
Yeah,
or a
yeah, it's
different
new
thing.
people.
I'm saying
Yeah.
completely new people, and the things that the last people did somehow have an effect if you want to. And I don't know. It's hard to
Right.
say.
Yeah. Yeah,
Sounds
yeah.
like a fun challenge.
Absolutely. All right. So what we've got here is so in the book, there's everything you need to sort of make your host or your cabal. Cabal is just a group of demons. Host is a group of robots. Has all the rules for combat and all that kind of stuff. If you're familiar with the mechanics of Reign in Hell, then you're familiar with a lot of the base mechanics here. So combat, very similar comparative combat scores to get, your target number, and then the number of dice you roll and how you defend, things like that are more or less the same. There is some new things like souls are gone. Souls are out. That was last year. That's last season. How gauche, right?
Indeed.
Charges in. So that's what the demons are looking for.
It's so hot right now.
It's so hot right now. Absolutely. There is a difference in the scenarios versus how we kind of did it originally. So like in Reign in Hell, the scenarios were more or less like self-contained things that were always the same when you played them. So like this was the beast, and like the beast is always the beast, and that's how it looks and how it plays, and it is that thing. And whereas this time there are 10 different scenarios and 3 different narrative scenarios. But like the 10 of them are dynamic in how they play out every time, because you generate different enemies, different objectives, different terrain, different complications, so on and so forth. So like all the other ancillary elements that make it up alter every time you play. The other new thing we did here, which I always like playing around with this sort of thing, is I realized, okay, so this is like a war for Earth, right? Like what we're doing here is fighting over Earth. That's the idea, right? The robots are trying to take back over, or sorry, the demons are trying to take back over. The robots would prefer that didn't happen. Okay, great. And so
I guess I never felt like the demons were trying to take, like, what are they going to do with Earth with no humans?
Figure out where the humans went.
Well, I just
Yeah, they're trying. They think. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I just always assumed that they were like, well, there's no humans and we can get some charge out of these guys, and also it's a good scrap. Sometimes I feel like demons and orcs are a little bit on the same page. You know what I mean?
Sure, I think that's an angle. Yeah, I mean, demons like fighting and destroying things, so like, why not both? Right?
Sure.
Like they can, they want to find the humans, but in the meantime, they're happy to tear apart these stupid machines and get a bunch of charge from them. That also sounds good. So let's get both things happening. It's a win-win. I can see them now they're reviewing their demon PowerPoints, and they're like, okay, kill robots. Next slide. Get charge. Figure out where humans are once we own the Earth. Win-win. Just like it's a messaging app and a text and a camera. It's the iPhone of murder.
Banking.
Yes.
Yeah.
But at any rate, in realizing that, I was like, okay, well, I want to make that real in some way. We haven't done like a full-on map campaign yet in anything. Like map, like a true map where you're walking across a map, like you go from X to Y hex or something. I don't know if we ever will. Even though I have a deep love for map games, but I also recognize their limitations. Oh, Jim Crimmins, thank you. He said, I thought Oculus Spear was perfect. Finished it without getting bored. Hey, thank you, man. I really appreciate that. Good. I thought it felt like the right amount of story, I hope, packed into there.
Mm-hmm.
So at any rate, what we did in this one was have territory. Okay, so you can control territories like a foundry or a holy site or something like that. Like some of them are more religious and speak to the demons, things demons would care about. Some of them are more technological and are stuff the robots would care about, but they can both own each other's stuff. And when you do so, it gives your group special abilities, but also it gives you something to fight over, right? So like, again, the scenarios will change if you actually have a foundry and then you play battle at the foundry. That is then different in what's on the line, because you can lose your foundry, not permanently.
With Majestic 13, we had the bases, and then there were things you could modify in the bases, but there was never any effect that could modify what you had modified in the base. There was never a situation where you played a scenario and it's like, oh, now our infirmary's broken or whatever. So I thought that was kind of an interesting thing, obviously, with Rain and Iron. That yes, you have these territories which you don't have to build terrain for. You don't have to build anything for them. It's not.
Right.
It's off stage, but it still also is giving you the ability to like go, oh, geez, we should. Yeah, no, that's broken now, and that thing. So yeah, I thought that was kind of a cool setup as well. I really did enjoy that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I'm familiar with Five Leagues from the Borderlands. Yeah, it's cool.
Mhm.
It's a good author, good game designer there. Somebody I respect. Um, so yeah, like the territories were just a nice way to like speak to the idea that there's a map that's being conquered without making it a physical map.
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
So yeah, exactly. Tom, with all of
Yes.
this new robot stuff, what sort of jumped out at you the most during your process in testing? Like what did you think of the robots in general? Did they feel like robots to you? That sort of thing. Like what did you think of the
They
robot
did.
additions? Because a lot of the demons were more or less the same as Rain and Hell.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just talk from a design standpoint. Like one thing that I appreciated was that things had purpose, right? Like units like broadcasted what they were for.
Mm-hmm.
And so from a build standpoint, like you could see like there was obviously a linear progression of um of broadcasting that, but that made them feel like robots
Yeah.
in the sense that like they had
Yeah.
purpose.
Yep.
Like you have this thing to do this, to do something. And so that was a small thing, but that was one that jumped out at me as I was like playing with it. I was like, I want to do X. Oh, look, here's something that does X.
Here's the
right?
robot that does X, right? That's probably named
Yes.
like Purpose X type of thing, right?
Yes, that's exactly right. Yeah.
Which is nice because
And
you're
so,
exactly right. The meta of it was fun too, because like, of course, robots would be built and designed with a purpose and then named that thing, right? Like your Roomba is a vacuum. It's designed to be a vacuum. It was built to vacuum your house, right?
yep.
Sometimes carry your cat around a little bit, but other
Sure.
than that, mostly it's about the vacuuming.
Sure. DJ Roomba.
Yeah, I definitely liked, like because the names in the demons, specifically the lesser demons, it's really much more about kind of like what they look like. The
Mm.
corpulent demon, the spined demon, that kind of
Right.
stuff. Whereas in the robots, it's a sniper, servitor, or it is a, what was another one? There's a sniper. There's other
Oh,
ones
you're
too.
talking for these guys? Yeah, let's go down here. I'll
Yeah,
scan
Yeah.
to that point in the book. By the way,
Yeah.
the art, real quick here. Adam, you want to shout out the artist for all this amazing art that was in here? Speaking of one-page rules earlier.
yeah. The art is done by Brandon Gilliam, who did a lot of the art in the earlier one-page rules books, and I think some of his stuff still shows up in some of the inside art on some of the books. I remember seeing his covers, which were very colorful and really kind of gestural and everything, and I really liked the look of them. And then I guess down the road said, we should do? We should pay him to do black and white, but it still worked out pretty cool. I liked the look of it, and he was super great to work with. He also goes by Runehammer online a lot, or Hankerin Hankerin something. When we first started posting his art, people were like, "Hey, that's Hank," and I'm like, "No, that's his name is Brendan." But and then it turned out that he also goes by Hank sometimes online,
Gotcha.
and it's like Hankerin for an ale, like you're gonna drink an ale, but it's like all
Oh,
one kind
not
of, yeah.
a nail, which
Not
is
a
what
nail, hankering for an ale. Yeah.
I thought this was a Henry III reference. Okay, got it.
Oh, no, no. But
Okay.
so yeah. Anyway, he was, yeah, he was a lot of fun to work with, and he did, I think, really great work. And yeah, so you've got your like your repeater servitor and your pulse servitor and your sniper servitor and your tangle servitor, and they're kind of like what they like they're like what they said on the tin. You know what I mean? So
Yes, that's right.
yeah, it does help.
That's right. And it was important. Like I didn't want them to be mirrors of each other. Real quick, I'll address something Jim Crimmins asked here. He said, "Do you guys blind playtest with a wider group of players?" Yeah. So generally, like, yes, Tom playtests often with his kids. I'll say that. So his children are like the unspoken heroes of this. But one of the first things I often do is when, as part of VinciCon, there's like an annual play testing of the new game when it's pretty raw. And so, John and Sam and Scott and Ben and those guys all run. And I purposely do not participate in those games or really intervene. I just let them, like, I explain the basics of what how things work, because I don't have like a book to hand them. So I just explain the basics and then send them off to the races. And I don't like intervene in any way. Other than if they have like a very base rules question, I will then force myself to go scroll through and read it to make sure I've properly answered it in the text. And I just let them go. Now, they are all friends, but at the same time, the reality is they don't hold back. When, trust me, it took like 5 seconds for this, especially when you've got John and Scott on the opposite sides of the table, for the emotions to get very real, and for them to let their real opinions very much be known. So, and a lot of good ideas came out of that initial session. So it was great.
When you said blind, I was thinking like people that we don't know.
Right.
That was what was making me think that. So I was like, no, we don't do that. We do work with people we do know, though, on those situations who are outside of the group, I guess, technically the group being, like the three of us here and whatnot. I think that Cygnus here is saying one of the hardest things handing your rules off and watching quietly is people misinterpret them. As a person who's been a web designer for a long time, that's part of the job. Is usability testing and then finding out, wow, either I'm dumb or everyone's dumb. I'm not sure which it is, but
Sure.
it's one of the two. But
the nuances of communicating through the English language, right? Like that has there's some give and take in that language.
But it's also not always that they're misinterpreting him. Very frequently, they're getting it exactly right, and you've screwed it up. Like the first game I ever designed with my friend Peter way back in the day, we handed off the rules as we had written them up to two friends of ours and told them we were in college. So we're like, go down to the lounge on this floor, read it all, play a game, come back, let us know what's going on. So then, Peter and I were watching TV or something, I don't know, and they were back in about 5 minutes. And we're like, you didn't finish? They're like, no, there's nothing in here that tells you how to start the game, and there's nothing in here that tells you how to finish the game. And we're like, yeah, that would have been useful information. Like we knew how you start the game and how you finish it, but we hadn't told anybody or written it down or anything like that, really. And so those are the type of things. I mean, there's obviously you want to get deeper than that, like as opposed to like, hey, where's this entire section? I can't figure out how to start, but there's times when you learn a lot about your game by letting people point out where you made mistakes. It's not always them going, I don't know how to do this or that or whatever, and that happens too. But admittedly, it's more often it's on you than it is on them.
Absolutely. No, that's great. I want to answer the super chat here. Just some dude with the super chat who said, "Hey Vince, I'm planning on creating a fire volcano themed KO army. I'm thinking of an obsidian and brass look with a deep red cloth. Any tips on how to paint black dark metal to give an obsidian look?" Well, just some dude, I'm glad you asked this question. Obsidian, as Tom learned long ago when he asked me the same question, is one of 5 items on my no-no list. The 5 things that you should not attempt to paint because it will be very hard to make it look correct. Obsidian is a very unique substance in that it is a black, translucent, shiny object, which is a combination of 3 very difficult things. The proper way to paint obsidian to make it look like obsidian is like a black gem, meaning like you have to have extremely small volume, high near white highlights that transition very quickly into deep, deep, deep black through a very subtle gray, and then usually white specular spot highlights on the top of it to show where the light has filtered through that substance. This is very hard to pull off when every single blend you're trying to run is trying to go from the highest value 1 to the lowest value 10. It's basically impossible, okay, unless you want to spend like a million years. Now, the way to cheat, if you don't care about having it look exactly correct, is you take a glossy black and you just paint it all glossy black. It's not going to look amazing.
Yep.
But it'll serve, okay?
It'll do.
It'll do. So in a pinch, you just take like some paint lines, there's actually glossy black in the paint line, but you can also just take black paint and mix it with like gloss medium or varnish or something and put it on. And you'll get something that's like serviceably like that. Okay.
It'll read like that at a distance.
Sure. Yeah. Beyond that, like obsidian itself it's one of my 5 no things. Like the 5 things you just don't paint. Like when I get these questions, I'm like, if this is one of the 5 things that if you have to ask how to paint it, you can't paint it. Because it requires like the level of skill required to achieve the effect would be such that you would already know how to do it and not do it.
I feel like obsidian is in many situations a lot more about the texture more than the, I mean, it's black and it's glossy and it's kind of transparent, but
Sure.
the way that obsidian rock has these kind of multi-layered kind of
Yeah, it'll
strata
also have like
and
a
all that
shale
kind of
strata
stuff.
to it. Yes, that also
Exactly.
further
And
complicates things because it's not like a big smooth gem, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
no,
It
and
has,
that's the thing.
it has
If you
to be
decide to,
cultivable, really.
yeah, if you decided to be like, oh, his sword is made of obsidian, and then it was just like a sword that was black and shiny, you could be like, yeah, okay, cool, whatever. But if you actually wanted to make it look like obsidian, then it wouldn't be sword shaped anymore. You know what I mean? Like it wouldn't, it's just, yeah, it's not exactly facets. Like that can be if you're chipping it, like chipped obsidian to make a knife, which is evidently a very, very sharp knives that people used to do back in the day. Yes,
Yeah, sure.
but even just like a broken off piece of obsidian has got that sort of like strata to it. That's, yeah, I don't know. It's, yeah,
Yeah, if you
black
want to
and
do it,
put some
just some
gloss on
dude.
top of it's fine.
Exactly. Black gloss is the way to go. And then from there, you need a really shiny, when you do your brass, it needs to have really bright silver edges. So that way it looks as shiny as the gloss varnish stuff. You don't want the obsidian looking brighter than the metal. And then just really pop your reds. Like it's a perfectly good color scheme. There's no problems with it. It's just obsidian is a really tough thing to resolve.
So what are the other 4?
That's what everybody said. They want to know what the other 4 are, right? I mean, there's a list. Okay. I'm going to do a video out of it someday. But I will say here, there's some guesses. Are some of the other 5 oil on water or a beetle carapace? So no, oils over acrylic paints or vice versa are completely doable. You just have to know how to treat the paints. Like I'm not a subscriber to that. I put acrylics over oils all the time.
Well,
No,
I think they're saying
they
actually
mean,
like
yeah,
oil pooling
Oh,
over
oil
water.
pooling on water? Yes.
like you see in a parking lot with all the rainbow
That is
colors.
one of the 5 effects. Yes. Like, so the rainbow flower pattern is one of the 5. Yes. Like the rainbow of light, right? So yes, if it's like an oil stain floating on water or like a mosquito, dragonfly's wings also has a similar scintillating effect. Like anything that you would describe as scintillating. No, that
Iridescent.
rainbow pattern. Yeah. Iridescent. That's good word, Tom. Very good word. Yes. Iridescent. So that would be one. Yes. That is one of them. Catharsis Chaser, who said one of them is translucent fabric for sure. Nah, translucent fabric is fine. That's
easy.
not actually hard. Yeah, that's easy. I've got a couple videos on that. That's just actually like skin. You just paint skin and then glaze some color over it. It's not actually that hard. But that's yes. The rainbowy pattern is another one of them. Yes, absolutely.
So what are the other ones? Rainbow pattern, obsidian.
You'll see when the video comes out, man. I'll do it as a video eventually. I can't give away all my trade secrets right now.
Oof.
Plaid.
No, I mean like plaid's not in my list.
Tartan.
But like plaid is very annoying to paint. But like Sam's trick of sort of nadial or anti-zenithal shadows is really what you have to do plaid correctly, right? Same with camouflage. Because otherwise it won't look right because even the shadowed parts will still have the same color in them unless you're going to trace each line and go through 3 different colors of paint. It's just not going to work. So, but like, it's not, again, it's just volumetric highlighting with things like plaid and stuff like that is difficult. Is sheer red hard to do? No, because red is a naturally very translucent color. So it's pretty easy. Yeah, it's pretty doable. It's also a skin aligned color, so it doesn't look weird. By that I mean like there's a lot of pink tones in skin. All right, back to this. Back to Rain and Iron. Good rabbit hole there we went down. Okay, so you got your robots. As usual, there's a lot of customization. But what I was saying earlier is we didn't want them to be like exactly the same. We didn't want them to just be mirrors of each other. So the demons function more or less like they did in Rain and Hell. Okay. So what I mean by that is like the way you build your cabal and the customization options you have and so on are more or less the same as what's in Rain and Hell. Small change, but for the most part, it's the same. The robots, I wanted to have similar-ish choices, but not make them an exact mirror. So like here, the robots have purposes, not philosophy, but like they as a society have divided themselves into purposes, right? Where that's sort of the thing that they believe is most important, that they have come to prioritize. And I wanted them all to be like squishier elements, because if these are truly artificial intelligence, right, functioning at like a level beyond what humans are even capable of, well, that doesn't mean they know the answer to every question, right? Because there are still sort of belief-oriented, subjective things that they could come to different quote-unquote opinions on. And so the purposes were that way to show what that group emphasized. And that's then how they have their special abilities and stuff like that. The other thing that's different about them is that I wanted to make building they are very hierarchical. The robots are synergistic. They're hierarchical and synergistic. They want to work and they want to work together, right? Each for its own little purpose. They want to be together. So you have like one leader, then 2 auxiliaries, then 4 servitors, right? So they're a little pyramid. Whereas the demons are very independent. They just want to like, they all are very idiosyncratic, very individualistic, I suppose would be the right word. Like they don't really care about that other demon died. Oh no, what a shame. Right.
I mean, in the first game, you could just decide to kill one of the other demons because you needed their soul energy,
Right.
and so it was fine. But now because of it's a little bit harder for them to reboot like they did in the first game. In the first game, they would just you'd come back and it's fine, but now you'd come back, but you're also in hell, and then you have to come back to Earth again, and it's a longer trip and the whole deal. So you have a little bit less. There's not really the reason to kill the folks you showed up with. You should be all on roughly the same page, and
it's a much longer walk to get back in the
this
situation.
Is my point. Yeah, and you don't get any benefit from it particularly.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, we changed some very basic stuff. The initiative system is still the same. I saw somebody earlier said that it's, one of their favorite rules I've ever written. I'm glad. Stay tuned for this year's Snarl, by the way. I don't remember who said it, so thank you if you liked that initiative system. But stay tuned for this year's Snarl. It's going to have a whopper of a thing in it, and we'll see what you think. Working on it now, and it's gonna be a thing. I wanted to talk a little about the scenarios just so people understand what it is. And so like let's take a look at like scenario battle at the Foundry. They're not all structured exactly the same, but this will give you a good rough idea. It's like pregame. If the battle, I'll make that a little bigger so people can actually see what's going on there. Okay. Boop. Bring that over. There we go. Okay. If the battle consists of 1 robot and 1 demon force, the robot player takes on the role of defender, while the demon player is the raider. If multiple players or teams are involved, 1 player or co-op team is randomly selected as the raider, with all other players acting as defenders. And then the objectives in this scenario represent key control points within the Foundry that cannot be moved. To claim an objective, a model must be the first to move within 3 inches of it and remain within that range. The objective remains under that model's control until they are either killed or move out of range, at which point another model may move in and claim it. And then the outcome here, if the raider is victorious, they gain a Foundry. So like this is one way you can gain territory in addition to any other rewards. If the defender controlled 1 or more Foundry territories and they lost, their Foundry is now damaged. And so that means they lose access to the bonuses it provides. If the defender was victorious and already controls a Foundry territory special feature, they may repair 1 damaged Foundry. Additionally, all defender models that survive the battle and were not destroyed gain 1 extra experience. So that's kind of, you see the simple structure of the thing, right? In this one, like the objectives can't move around. Normally you can pick up the objectives and run away with them. But since this is like important stuff that's nailed to the ground at a foundry or a factory, they can't just like run away with the means of production. Seize the means of production. They can't run off with them, right? So that's
Like
how it is.
literally seizing the means, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. You got it.
Yeah.
You're literally seizing the means of production. Yes. But like where the objectives are is going to vary every time. And importantly, in every scenario, there is also this very fun thing. I'll scroll back up to. Oops, where's that? I'll scroll down to it, I guess. I'm sorry. Victory resource must be after here. Where is my, there it is, complications. Okay, there we go. Generate complications. So this is a fun thing. Also, just can we get a shout out for this piece of art on the complications page, Adam? This is like this crazy demon, the one with a little like saucer walk on his head, right? Or whatever. And he's got like, he just got junk everywhere. I love this dude. He's got all his weird arms. So at any rate, there's like there's a series of crazy complications that will happen. And even when you roll for the complication, it doesn't always happen right away. So they happen at non-determinative times during the game. Basically, like every round you're rolling to see when the complication that you determined is actually going to happen. And they're very fun in how they can suddenly come in and change the game, because there's some big stuff in here. Sometimes stuff is simple and just does damage, but oftentimes it can be really crazy on what it does with the fight, which is great because you know it's coming. You know it could happen at any time, but you don't know when it's going to happen. It's just another kind of element of suspense I like. I'm always thinking about like suspense and surprise in our games. So, yeah. Okay, cool. Tom, what else, man? What else am I not talking about here? What else jumps to your mind? And while I'm saying this, by the way, if y'all watch and have any questions, drop those in the chat. So if you've got any questions, drop them in there. Tell us anything you want to know about the game.
My favorite was, and this is going to sound fun this is going to be funny because it's not actually related to anything directly that we've been talking about, but just the model diversity. Like finding the right models for like representing the various like units and the various types. Obviously, all the games that we've done have been model agnostic, right? But it's been fun with robots specifically, because we don't always have a whole lot of those in a lot of the main. Like, sure, if everybody's going to do Tau, right? But that's not.
Sure.
That's not the trajectory.
I used a Tau guy in the battle report. Yeah. Okay. They stand in great for some robots. Let me say that. Many Tau things, as well as obviously Necrons. So can't not have a Necron mention. Shout out to the Necrons or AdMech. A lot of good robot things. No, I agree.
So that's been fun. Was just like, for me, again, it wasn't gameplay related, but it was just finding the right fit for like what I wanted to have represented on the table and how I was imagining these things. And so there is something to be said if you've never played a miniature agnostic game, to the discovery process of figuring out what is the right fit for models for what you're wanting to imagine or create.
Yep. So Jim asked, what are you guys using for your robots outside of Tau and Necrons, right? And so those new one-page rules robots that you were talking about earlier, right, are great. Yep. Ironically, yes, thank you, Catharsis. That's exactly what I was going to say. Battletech minis actually work great for this. Like, even though in the Battletech world, they're meant to be like 20 meters tall because it's like in 6mm scale, right? They're actually, I mean, obviously, Tau or Battletech robots are like in 28mm scale, they're like the size of a person, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, if they were 28mm scale, they'd be very tall, but since they're 6, yeah, scale's funny. But they definitely, I've had a lot of people telling me that they're using Battletech minis, and it's probably because so many people have Battletech minis. Honestly, they're the planet is filthy with them. I've got a whole bunch myself. But otherwise, we've got a blog post on the website that also, and we learned this early on, that when we launch a new game, we definitely have to launch it with a blog post that says, hey, this is some places you could go online and look for miniatures or whatever that would work well with this game. But you could also literally just go into Google and type in robot miniatures, and you're going to find some stuff, and it might be weird stuff, and it might be who knows. But yeah,
Yeah, you're gonna find some weird stuff, but it's also good. I was scrolling through my mini factory for a future project. I won't say anything more than that. With Adam as we were meeting because we were talking about model potential for this game that we're working on, and I kept running into sexy versions of the thing I was looking for, and I was like, why are there so many of these? It's like half the results.
Yeah, way back when we were doing Majestic 13, I just typed alien into my mini factory, and one of the first things that popped up was the xenomorph from the Alien movies, but with boobs and high heels. And I was like, what? Why? Why did you? What?
To be fair, they are supposed to be somewhat sexual already, so I suppose. So, Geiger was drawn from that, but whatever. It's more full circle.
I don't think he would have put high heels on him for sure.
I don't think so either. No, that is truly horrific. What were you gonna say, Tom?
Nothing. No, what I would say, the models that I've actually liked the most are 3D prints of like Terminator models.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I use 3D prints on for the photography that we used for the stuff and the video stuff that we put out there. I just basically went through again my mini factory, found a bunch of things I thought would work relatively well, and then used those. Had my friend Dave print them and painted them up. And yeah, there's a lot of things out there. Really, in the grand scheme of thing, it's honestly it's about the base size. So you can put pretty much anything with it, whether it's in a 32 to 40 millimeter base, and it'll be fine. So,
yep. The miniature paintbrush said, "Can you shoot through your units to attack the enemy?" Yeah, they don't provide your own units don't provide cover or anything like that. So yes, as long as you didn't make your mini like a literal brick wall. Like if your mini is a literal walking around brick wall and the other mini standing right behind it and there's no line of sight, then yeah, it would block view. But otherwise, no, they don't. That would be a very funny thing. My host is the brick wall robots. They're all just tiny walls set on a base. No line of sight anywhere. Yeah, exactly. Sexy robot squirrels. Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. The little stinker says, I believe it's Yogscast who will make a game of seeing how many my mini factory pages they can get through before finding a not safe for work landmine. It is not far. It is not far. You lose that game fast. Yeah.
Type in M4 Sherman tank and then just keep scrolling until you get one with boobs on it. And there you go. I don't know why, but yeah.
It's the sexy Sherman tank. Yes. So the yeah, I mean, the reality is it's just like we said originally with Rain and Hell. Anything can be a demon if you try hard enough, right? Like it's the same thing here. Like using Battletech minis because they're about the size of a person, so using different scales is fine. Or having people in like extremely heavy power armor. Like, yeah, great, okay, that's a robot. I don't know what's inside that thing. Why not? Right?
Anything can be a robot or a demon if you believe in yourself.
Yeah, that's right. Jim Crimmins said, "How long do the head-to-head scenarios take?" So when you start, probably about 45 minutes ish is usually about the time to resolution. If you really get rolling, they're probably closer to 30, but also as you go, like if you know the rules really well, you can probably do about 30. As you get very deep in the campaign and have more abilities, that'll probably balance out. So on average, the games that I played took 45 minutes.
And particularly also as you start to add more models as well to the
you can
yeah
through post game process you can have more models. Yep, absolutely. That is a minor change that we made in Rain and Hell. You could just go buy new demons and recruit them in this. It's a particular element on the reward table you basically have to roll into. So there you go. We did change a lot of the nature of the rewards for various and sundry reasons. Although as well as some of the terrain effects, because like some of the haunted hell terrain didn't really make sense. So we kind of updated it to be like stuff that would exist in the world. There's different treasure tables you can find, upgrade tables, advancement, stuff like that. Like your robots and demons actually gain experience, and like level up, as it were, quote unquote.
I'm hoping to see, and I don't have the stuff yet myself. Eventually maybe. But I would love to see, like, because the thing is that as far as terrain is concerned, you have ruins, yes, but you also just have buildings that robots are currently using. And so I would love to see, like, a something that was a little bit more akin to an actual like robot city, and now the battle is going on there between the demons and the robots. I think that would be, but I don't like I gotta be honest, most of the buildings I own are all ruins, at least
Sure.
currently. I do have a bunch of cyberpunk buildings that I'm working on. There's 3 of them that have been primed black at this point, and that's kind of where they've stalled as I've been working on other stuff. But none of those are ruins. Those are all like
Buildings, functional
Bill-
cyberpunk buildings.
like brutalism, basically,
Yeah,
as
yeah.
far as
Oh,
exactly.
yeah. This is from what's the name of the thing? 'Cause you showed them to me. I thought they were really cool.
Brutal Cities.
There you go. That's what it was.
Yeah, they're out of Australia, so it's expensive to get the stuff shipped all the way here because it's all laser cut MDF. But yeah, they're cool, and I'm going to use them for cyberpunk stuff. But they'd also be perfect for this as well.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, because I mean, like, the robots don't live in like some post-apocalyptic world. They live in like Earth. It's their Earth. They took it over. They run it. They do a pretty decent job with it.
You can
It's all right.
see how much work Wally did by himself.
Yeah, exactly.
Think if you had way more of those guys, they would have already fixed everything up already at this point.
Running a tight ship over here, those robots. They're not messing around. So absolutely. Yes, Cygnus said, "Oh man, Adam said Robot City," and I got flashbacks to that weird Robots movie my kids were briefly obsessed with when they were much younger. Yeah, there you go.
I vaguely remember that.
Yes, I vaguely remember I think that was when I worked at like CompUSA. I think that was on sometimes. All right. Well, I mean, it's post-apocalyptic to us, the humans. Like for us, it's an apocalypse because we're not around anymore. But to the robots, it's just Tuesday, right?
Yeah.
Like things aren't blown up. Things still look like they look. Okay. Do you guys find you're influenced by other skirmish game designers? What are some of your favorites? Seems like we're having a boom of indie skirmish games right now. Yeah, I mean, I think with the means of production and stuff like that being much lower, it's easier, which is great. It's a good thing. It's a very good thing to see all these people making games. And the answer is yes, certainly. I don't, you can't not be, right? Like we literally have an indie game podcast, Snarlcast, check it out, linked below. And so we're often talking about these kinds of games that we're playing and trying and stuff like that, right? So I don't know, Adam, what do you think?
I mean, the way I look at it is, I don't know, maybe influenced isn't the right word. Maybe sometimes to some degree kind of goaded, you know what I mean? Like driven.
I could say inspired. That's probably a good word. Like, wow, that's cool. That's a neat thing they're doing.
I think if it's inspired, like influenced, right, to me is like, okay, well, you decided to tweak things a little bit and all that kind of stuff and change, look at like what these guys did and like a Heartbreaker or something like that.
Yeah.
And that's not exactly what we're generally doing, but there are times when you see, other people doing stuff and you get the vague idea, but I don't usually like to try to go, oh, let's change things up so much. I don't know why doing this with my hand makes my camera zoom, but
it does. Yeah, that's very funny.
Thing. So
it's got to it's trying to find Nick over there.
Yeah, could be. He's over there somewhere. But yeah, I don't know. I like skirmish games a ton, and I play a bunch. And like lately, it is Trench Crusade, Space Weirdos, Steel Rift. I'm going to start playing some Alpha Strike soon, which is not indie, I would say, in this situation. The rest of those are all relatively indie, but I would say that stuff coming from the BattleTech IP is not necessarily indie.
No. Yeah. Although the best sci-fi lore, obviously, is all BattleTech. BattleTech lore is way better than 40K lore. Fight me, nerds. So at any rate, what's I can't remember his name. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on his name, but who did Sword Weirdos and Space Weirdos?
That is Casey Garsky.
There you go.
Yeah,
yes,
Garsky Games. Yep.
There you go. Great stuff. Like I really think those are like very creative games for how small they are. They're just like so efficient, effective at getting in and doing what they're doing, and I really respect that. I love game design that's just like, what do I want to say, like an efficient package, right? Where it's like, here is the fun thing. And I am just like, I'm not worried about a lot of crazy flair or going nuts. I'm just going to give you a tight, fun experience. Here's that thing, right?
But yet
I
you
like
still get
that.
the ability to customize, which I
Yeah,
like
yeah.
too. You get like, oh, well, this guy's going to have this kind of thing, but there's not like 28 different types of armor. There's either like armor or power armor. There you go, or that kind of
Sure.
stuff. But it still does give you some choices to kind of customize, either whether you're trying to like get a little bit more WYSIWYG and match your models, or whether you're just like, I think it would be better for me to have a guy that's got this going on so that I have this covered, if you get into like strategery and all that, which I'm not good at. So more often than not, it is generally depending upon like what my models look like and how I customize them that way.
Right. Rob asked, have the surviving humans moved to another planet or possibly the moon in the in-game lore? That is, we don't know. We don't know,
Find
Robert.
out.
It's a mystery.
Hard to say.
Who knows what happened? Yeah. Are there any humans left at all? Hard to say. Absolutely. Cygnus says they went through the portal to hell and locked it behind them. Joke's on you. Ha! We're swapping.
Sure.
Just
Yeah.
moved into their land.
I wouldn't think that demons would be super into Earth. I don't know. I mean,
It's
they
nicer than their home.
Yeah, but nice is a relative term. They probably love the fetid, toxic swamps and the petrified forests and stuff like that. Like you grow up around that and you're like, this is awesome. And then you go to like our neck of the woods or literally the woods on Earth and you're like, there's all these animals and everything is sort of decaying. And like our trees are already stone. So that's kind of nice. We come here to Earth and these stone, they're alive and filled with goo. And I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe I'm watching that that Devil May Cry animated series that's on Netflix right now. This is like that Dante guy, the dude in like the red trench coat with the sword and the guns or whatever. I never played any of these games. I understand he's a character from a video game.
Yes.
That is like literally what I know about him because I've seen him on like a video game cover or something, right?
I think it's a fighting game. I don't know, maybe not.
I think it's like it's one of those. I thought it was one of those games where you're like fighting a whole horde of things. Like you move
That could
around
be too.
and
I don't know.
bounce
Yeah.
people around and do stuff. At any rate, in that is also has this like demons invading Earth kind of sub theme in it, right? And there's a bunch of demons who are like trying to get to Earth because hell is killing them. It's like a terrible, awful place to live. Yeah, there's like some very powerful demons who are like, yay, hell rules. This place is great, right? But most of them are like, this place sucks. We want to go anywhere else. So, I mean, maybe it's not uniform. That's all I'm saying.
I just rewatched Constantine last weekend, which is a spectacular movie. It's not, from what I understand, any kind of a actual like. It doesn't. If you're like, oh, this is like the comic book, it's not, which is fine. It's still a good movie. But there, hell just seems really windy. Like I wouldn't be able to get anything done in hell because there was just this constant gale force. Like you'd be like trying to play a card game and your cards fly away, and you'd be like trying to put hair product in if you had any hair, if you were a demon or not, and it just And I just don't. I would want to get away from that. I just some peace and quiet, but I don't know. Maybe they're
makes sense. I want to switch gears here just real quick. So Tom,
cool.
What did we rewrite the most? What was the most like annoying thing? What was it? Do you remember? I'm trying to think back to like what we changed. What was the single most annoying thing we went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth on?
Let me pull it up real quick.
Yeah, your notes and stuff. I mean, one thing getting exactly right was that kind of balance over time. I'll say that, like what happens on a critical and stuff like that. I mean, there's a lot of like little changes. We kept moving numbers around with units. I remember a lot of little changes, right?
Yeah, there were no like it wasn't egregious, right, from a balance standpoint. There was some argumentation on like some push and pull on weapon range or on ability ranges, I think it was. And mobility.
Yeah, I think really just balancing the mobility. Like we went around and we moved a lot of people's movements a lot, like many times, like who needs to be this fast? Like one of the most devastating robot troops for a long time was their weakest troop, right? When I first wrote it, which was the little Aether Servitor guy, because he was like too fast and his range was too long. That he could just like buzz around and pick up objectives and shoot people. Even though he didn't do a lot of damage, he was just like constantly there doing stuff and just being like way too effective for what he was. And so like I remember us having to rein that guy in pretty extreme.
Yeah, there was there was some area, like some multi-target damage. If I
Yeah.
remember correctly, that was a problem because of the incentives around how demons would be moving across. I forget what it was. I was trying to find it in the revision history and I couldn't find it with the notes. So
No, that's
yeah, I
fine.
don't know.
I mean, I remember we did a lot of that. Jim Crimmins said, and let's all answer this. This is a good one. Ed Evans, has Adam's camera been taken over by a demon or by an AI? Could be either. Yeah.
Yes.
No, that's just
Watch
Apple.
out.
That's what it does. Your camera you have does or I assume it's Apple. I don't know. Maybe maybe
Yeah,
not.
it is. Yeah, it tracks my head somewhat, but yeah.
Yes. But it'll also then like zoom in and zoom out when it senses other movement in the room or whatever. Hey, there you go. Light show. Boop, boop, bow. That's why that Tom is also on a Mac. That's why when they do this, the little boop boop boop, boop thing happens.
I mean, my reactions aren't turned on, but they could be.
Mine aren't either, but yeah, they
see there you go, Tom. You did it. There it is.
It's because I turned them on.
Oh, okay, got it. But Jim Crimmins' question was you guys with your Macs, I swear to God. All right. To date, what is your favorite Snarling Badger game, if you have a favorite? Mine is Majestic 13, since you asked, both because it's your most awesome book and hobby challenge, painting modern and huge aliens. Okay. So, Adam, what's your favorite? If we have to pick a favorite child here.
Yeah, honestly, I think mine is Majestic 13. And part of it is due to the the overall like layout vibe to it. It is definitely it's definitely something I spent the most time on. Like every one of our games, I do the layout, and that one took the longest. But luckily, we also had the time. We'd kind of scheduled it that way because we knew we weren't going to have an illustrator. And pretty much every other game we've done, we've had some sort of illustrator, digital illustrator, physical illustrator, traditional or whatever. And you get stuff from them and you pop it into pages where it fits, and there you go. And in that game, for me, it was like, well, I've got this spot where this part ends, and then I could start the next page here, or I could move it to the next page at the top, and then I have this space. Well, what can I put in this space? Well, what about a picture of a UFO with a top secret stamp on it? And so all of those things were kind of made, basically. They were all photo manipulation stuff I did in Photoshop. The cover is literally just a photo. The only Photoshoppery that happens on the cover of that book is in that
you literally printed that out and took a picture of it on your desk or whatever, right? Like that's what that came from.
The only photoshopping is that there's like a manila folder kind of in the background a little bit, and it has that sort of red stripiness that top secret manila folders have, and I don't, as it turns out, have the ability to get a top secret manila folder, so I had to Photoshop that part on there. But the entire rest of that is just literally just a setup I took on a desk at my studio and then just took a photo. I went to the 1 hour photo place and had them print that photo of the alien, and then that's and then I beat it up a little bit.
I would like this one photo, please. And then they print it out. They're like, okay, here's this weird alien.
Yeah, exactly.
You weirdo.
Yeah, exactly. And I was fine with it. And then the actual stamp that's on that piece of paper is I had a stamp made, and then I printed that piece of paper like 20 times and stamped it till I got the one that I liked, and then that's the one that I used. And so
if you buy Majestic 13 from us at a convention, by the way, we will stamp your book with the top secret red stamp, so you get the special version.
If we have the stamp with us, sometimes we do.
Yes.
Yeah, but we do have the stamp available. So but yeah, it felt the most handcrafted to me because I could spend the extra time to go, well, we're gonna have a little memo over here. Part of it's gonna be redacted, and it's in this little, and so there's that too. On the other hand, I also love the overall vibe of it. I mean, like I love that kind of conspiracy theory, UFO, XCOM versus X-Files kind of thing. And so I enjoy that. And the 5-on-1 kind of not
the asymmetrical battle. Yeah.
Asymmetrical. Yeah. Battle thing is very cool. And so to me, there's just a lot in there that I do really enjoy. I would say probably second place is probably Space Station Zero, just because the art is so just good.
Will Kirkby really, just really killing good. It. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Tom, what about you?
I'm gonna split mine into two.
Okay.
My favorite game to develop was Space Station Zero.
Okay.
Just
Because you got to
it
play
was,
through the role playing game.
yeah, like I got to play through it, but it like each each scenario was its own puzzle
Yep.
to figure out what needed to be balanced and what needed to be changed, right?
Yep.
Um,
I remember.
and
So,
so
just as a quick note, when Tom was playtesting through Space Station Zero the first time, he hit me up one day and he's like, "Hey, you got to fix scenario like 21 or something. I don't remember what number it was. Somewhere toward the end." I was like, "Oh yeah, what's wrong?" He's like, "Well, you can't beat it. It's mathematically impossible." Yeah. He's like, "I don't mean like I don't have the tactics. I mean like you literally made it mathematically impossible to do." And I was like, "Oh, oops.
yes,
Okay, thanks. Good catch."
I would say that's maybe our hardest game.
It is definitely the hardest game. Yeah, yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
yes, yeah. Like it's a survivalist
If you're
game.
playing through solo
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah. It's a survivalist game, and that's what it's meant to be, right? It is very difficult. So from a development standpoint, that was my favorite. From a play standpoint, as this is ridiculous, and I recognize it, but it's the renamed Great Goblin Argle Bargle,
Sure.
or
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Great Goblin Gamut, as
Yeah,
it
which
was
is what we called it
originally.
originally. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
My youngest son still asks me to play that.
Sure.
Yeah, Dad, can we play some more Goblin game this weekend? Like that is a regular refrain in my household.
Hey, there you go.
Right.
If you want a good game for your kids, Snarl 2024, the Great Goblin Argle Bargle, good to go. Also incredible art. What is the I'm sorry, I can't remember her name. Stephanie? Is that her name?
Yeah, Stephanie
Yeah.
Krieger,
There you go.
or Kruger. Well, one of the two. Falling Freely art on Twitch and probably Instagram as well. And yeah, I came across her art. She's local within the state, and I see her at conventions sometimes and things like that. We bump into each other at Adepticon and whatever. And so I started following her on Twitch, and she frequently is painting miniatures. But one day she was just drawing, and she drew these. She was like in the midst of drawing this, like this little scene of two kobolds sitting around a little campfire, and a goblin was sneaking up on them. And I was just like, oh, that's who needs to do the Goblin game that we're that's that, and
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
just perfect. I mean, she did such yeah, it's just so good, and then the cover just works so well and all the internal stuff and everything like that, so, yeah, if you're interested, I think she sells prints. I mean, we had some prints at
Yeah, we
TMX,
had
and I
some
think
prints for sale at TMX. They were
she
great.
also, I think,
I was
sells them
very
online as
sad I
well.
couldn't buy one. I wanted to buy one of the big prints because I wanted to put it on the wall behind me
Mhm.
here in the shot. The problem was I had like I was literally going from TMX. I went to Minnesota to Wisconsin to Houston to Dallas. Like I was in the middle of like a 8-day work trip, right? When I went to TMX. And so there was just like I had one backpack. I'm like, this is not surviving, 3 more flights or whatever I had at that point.
Yeah, the
Like,
print is like 11 by 17 or something like that.
yeah.
I mean, she could easily send you one, I'm sure of it.
Yeah, I gotta hit her up and get one of those because I do want to hang it.
Yeah.
I thought her art, like I think Will Kirkby's art in Space Station Zero, like we could do a whole separate conversation of like our favorite art elements,
Mhm,
right? Because
mhm.
there's art I love in all the books for different reasons.
Yeah.
But I love funny looking goblins, and I just think her art hit some of the most for me. Like I the art that was done for Death Wizards, which is my answer by the way. My favorite game by far
Mhm.
is Death Wizards because necromancers rule. Tom knows
Ooh.
I've loved playing
Yeah.
necromancers in D&D going back our entire lives that we've known each other. I've known Tom since he was like 12. You weren't really that young, but it feels like you were that young. I think I met you when you were like 13 actually, but whatever. You were 12. Um and
I don't
so
know that that's true.
when did how old were you when Travis brought you to the store that morning? That was the first time I met you.
I was in 7th grade.
Okay. So how old maybe you were 12. Wow. Okay. There you go. I don't know. But
Yeah.
anyways, I've known Tom a long time. That's the point. And I've loved necromancers like that entire length. I love the sort of woodcutty feel of the art. Who is the other? I'm terrible with names. Who is our other
Mar
artist for Death Wizards?
Martin McCoy. It was,
There you go. Thank you.
the more black and white kind of painterly stuff is Martin McCoy in that book in Death Wizards, and also the cover. And then the other little kind of tiny little line art drawings here and there, and that stuff with the sort of scratchy kind of pen. That
Combat.
was Yeah, and including combat, which was a slightly larger one, and there's also like a cool knight that's skeletal riding a horse with a shield with a human heart painted on it, all that kind of stuff. That art is all done by our good friend Sam Lens.
That's right. So, yeah, I mean, for me, Death Wizards is the pick. I like the sort of nature of the way the missions go. You really have this like very, very impactful, important central character. Most of our games don't have that. Like, yeah, you maybe have like a leader or something, but you're still like generally having a team. You know, it's like a team of people, and they're all pretty important. And whereas in Death Wizards, it's like, no, there's one person in this group that matters. Right? Like,
there's a little bit of that in what the hell's it? War Machine. War Machine, like the caster, the warcaster is really important, but still there's also a lot of other chuckleheads and they're actual people as opposed to just like being thralls that the the necromancer has just telling them that they have to do stuff. So it's got a bit of a different vibe to it for sure.
Sure. All right. Let's see. John Shave said, "What's the biggest change you tried in game testing that had no impact?" The biggest change we tried in testing that had no impact. God, I don't know. I can't think of anything that had no impact. I mean, if you change something in a game, it usually has an impact. That's what I'll say.
It's not an issue of like, there's always like secondary consequences are normally the things you're changing for. Tertiary consequences are not.
Right.
And so inevitably, whenever we change things, there were always ripples in the system.
Yeah, because if we really think, like, Tom and I spend a lot of time talking it through when we're looking at feedback and like actually trying to talk through, okay, if we change this, what's going to happen logically?
Like, what is it?
And we try to map that out. And so if we are discussing a change and we realize it's going to end up being 6 of one and half a dozen of another, meaning that like it's not actually material,
it's not the right thing to change,
then we just don't change it. Yeah, exactly. So most of the time we can map that pretty effectively. Stephen Powell said real quick here, we recently finished Space Station Zero and it was delightful. Hey, that's great, Stephen. I'm glad to hear it. The warship tank commander build is really, really potent. Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Yeah. The old co-op team of like the science crew or whatever and the war crew, or like it's a potent combo. You put together a little Star Wars and Star Trek, or I guess if you like 40K and Star Trek, you got a potent combination there.
No, it's a Star Trek and the Klingons.
There you go.
Like, it's the Enterprise and Klingons. That's what that is.
Yeah. When the Enterprise and the Klingons get together, that's very little can stand in their way. You're done, Romulans. You're done. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I think for the most part, like, we've had changes that we had to further change. Like, I will say that for sure, where we made a change and then we're like, oh gosh, that didn't work how we wanted it to. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Jim Crimmins said, have you ever had any real disagreements where you got to fight for a mechanic or a rule or a vibe? Then who wins? Oh yeah, for sure. Yes. I would hope so.
Yeah. I mean,
otherwise we're not very good partners.
No. I mean, we definitely have to discuss things from time to time. There's plenty of times, I would say more than not. There's times when I will say a thing and then Vince will be like, that is literally what I was about to say, or the other way around, like, well, what's the best feel for this? And then one of us goes this and the other one's like, yep. And that happens, like I said, more frequently than not. But there are times when a thing comes up and then you're just kind of like, well, I'm not sure.
Sure.
And so that happens from time to time as well. But it is generally, I don't want to say that we're a data-driven organization because there's no data very frequently in this kind of stuff. But
well, for Tom there is, but yes.
Oh, no. But I mean, like, they're data-driven organizations are like, well, if we're trying to decide whether it should be the blue button or the red button on this part of the website, we A/B test it and then go with this one's got 2 percentage points higher, so that's the one we're going to go with. And then the designer's like, but it doesn't match any of the that kind of thing. For us, we definitely discuss things and we have a tendency to I can't think of anything that we haven't been able to convince the other eventually. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, what's just like again, uh, Adam and I just have a good simpatico working relationship as far as this goes. He's good at actually catching, like, what most of the time happens is I'll say, I think this is a great idea. And then Adam will be like, actually, but here's the problems. And he'll be like, problem 1, problem 2, problem 3 or something. And I'll be like, crap. That's a good point. Like, he just, I mean, you have presented very logical reasons. You got me, like, and so I'm just like, okay, fine. There have been times where I will fight to keep something in the game because, like, Adam's like, well, I'm not sure about that. And I'm like, oh, just trust me. Like, for example, the whole range versus melee thing. At the
Oh yeah.
beginning, Adam was like, I don't think that's going to work, or, that's going to be real problematic or challenging. And I was like, well, that's fine. Just trust me. We can always adjust. But, like, let me get to where we can play test it some, and then we'll see how it goes. And Adam just trusted the process, right? And was like, okay, we'll see how it plays out and then change it if we need to. And so that's
Exactly.
oftentimes the answer.
And if push comes to shove, like if it turns out that the system doesn't work, then it's relatively simple to just kind of backpedal a bit and go, oh well, now both sides have range and both sides have melee. And
Right.
the both
The
sides
demons throw
having
fireballs now. Great. Okay.
sure or whatever they found, I don't know, rocks, whatever. And but the trick is that like that kind of thing, like trying to figure out, like that's the sort of standard. Almost every game out there, even the Tau, back in 5th edition, did technically have some kind of melee
Yeah,
weapons,
crude
sort
existed,
of.
I think.
Yeah, exactly. So there was a little bit of that. But, so that's kind of standard that all your forces always have access to both range and melee. And so, though I didn't think it was going to work initially, I definitely was like, I want to know if it will work, maybe. You know what I
Sure.
mean? And that would be an interesting thing. I don't know if it's a selling point per se, but it is definitely like, because Vince and I don't do this to feed our families particularly. It's not
Right.
like we don't, use the we the money is nice to be able to, use to pay bills and things like that and whatever, but it's not the only thing that we depend upon.
Right.
So therefore we can take risks sometimes and we can go, let's see if this is something that's actually doable, you know what I mean? And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. There's games that we've had, I mentioned before that Majestic 13 is probably my favorite game, but to date it had been basically kind of the least, in sales. And we figure that personally, that's a little bit more about subject matter than anything else. Like fantasy's
Right.
fantasy, sci-fi's sci-fi. People go, "Yep, I know what that is." But when you're like Majestic 13, I have a picture
Yeah,
of an
it's a
alien on the
modernish
cover,
game.
people are
People are
like,
just like, nope. Well,
yeah. So and that's fine. But we still had a good time doing it, and that's kind of
yeah,
how
I'm
it
glad
works.
we
So
made
yeah,
it. Absolutely. Like,
yeah,
even if
yeah,
it
for
was the
sure.
lower, the lowest selling one, like, it's still, I'm very proud of the game. So,
Mhm. But the
um,
conversation is always like trying to figure it out from the point of view of like, is this going to be something we want to do? What's the reasoning behind why wanting to do it this way? And as if a good argument can be made, then especially in the early days, well, then let's see.
yes. And, like, as far as Tom, I mean, I'll get Tom, I want your take on this, but, like, you have, both of us know largely how to argue with the other one. Like, we've spent the better
Sure.
part of 30 plus years arguing with each other, right?
Mhm, mhm.
On this show and otherwise, as is witnessed frequently on this show. And so, I mean, when Tom does his development, if he brings me data that says something's off, like if he just shows the data, I'm like, yeah, okay, well then how should we fix it, right?
Right.
Um, and
Yeah.
and
It's not a difficult argument in that I
right,
know what motivates Vince. Right. And
right,
so I just have to show him the data to say that this is why it's broken.
right. If Tom's like, well, I feel like this doesn't work, I'm gonna need a little more than that, right?
Sure.
Which I do sometimes. I'm like,
Right,
this doesn't feel right. And you're like, you got to give me more than that.
right,
Doesn't feel right.
exactly.
Feel is super important, though, in gaming. At least to me, vibes. You know what I mean? Like, and
Oh,
it's
Yep.
not
sure.
just like it's not just the lore, like the way that that things work sometimes. Like, anytime I've got to like roll a reroll of a reroll or something like that, I'm like, I don't know. But yeah, so vibes are important, but also again, data. If you're like, look, scenario 21 cannot mathematically be won by
Right,
anybody.
yeah,
That's
it's like, okay, well,
that's a
gotta
pretty
fix that.
easy answer at that point. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jim said, as self-described bad capitalist, Adam has hinted at mixing up your marketing silence in future releases? Might you leverage the YouTube ecosystem of channels you have access to in the future? So that'll probably stay afterward, like you said, like Ninja and Miniac, those kinds of things. Like there'll be stuff coming for that. Like there'll be a TUP episode coming where we talk about Rain and Iron. There'll be Scott and I did a video when I was out there with him. So like that usually will stay after launch. That being said, yes, the next main game we release will have a different marketing situation. We will probably let more out of the bag earlier, though we're still refining exactly what we want that to look like.
It's mainly because we want to see if it makes a change. Because I'll be perfectly frank with you, if it turns out like it doesn't seem like it worked, well, then we'll do something else. But we've at this point put out 5 main games, right? Yes, 5 main games.
5 games, yeah.
And so we've done it the same way every time. Like obviously on the first one, nobody knew it was coming at all because we just sort of came out one day with it and went, hey, look at that. And then every other one we were like, it's coming on this date, and then we would tease for a week and all that kind of stuff, and that's fun and everything. But I think that we do want to see what happens when we. Well, I mean, look at the rumor engine we were talking about before. You know what I mean? Like it seems
yeah, you
silly,
can't just keep. Yeah, we
but
can't keep just putting up the same little corner of an image that doesn't mean anything. Yep.
right. Yeah. So there's that as well. But I think that we could probably also I think we could, we've had plenty of people make battle reports and things like that. Not a battle report, but just like literally the week after the game came out, during TMX, basically. Phil, the Glacial Geek, from he lives out in Atlanta currently, or the Atlanta area. And he made a video about building a host of robots for Rain and Iron and everything like that, and so that was pretty cool. So there's been a little bit of that, but it has a tendency to come. Honestly, in many situations, it has a tendency to come once the books start getting in people's hands, which is
Right.
now at this point, and then knocking on after that.
That's right.
Yeah.
Which game was the best selling? There's a couple different ways you could define that. The Harrower. I mean, pure trajectory. Like probably my answer would be Space Station Zero. Again, there's a couple different ways you can actually measure that.
Yeah. Rain and Hell had the best first weekend.
Right.
So if you're looking at that short of a trajectory, that's one. But yeah, I would say Space Station Zero is probably up there. Knowing that Rain and Hell has a almost 18-month head start, because Rain and Hell came out in like late May of 2021, and then Space Station Zero did not come out in May of 2022. It came out in the end of August 2022. So there was maybe not not an 18-month, but at least 16-month roughly head start. So we've never taken the time to sit down and like map. Well, every once in a while we'll like, let's see what the first 2 weeks are on every one of the games. And then compare stuff.
You're
like
talking
that,
about like sales over time, average per day, all that kind of stuff. So there's like lots of ways to measure it, right? Who had the best first day, best first year, total to current, but like that's not always equal because Rain and Hell was out this much longer, blah, 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 blah. So, that kind of thing. Stephen Powell said the marketing thing I felt was the biggest miss was that Louise of Rogue Hobbies wasn't part of the marketing for the Great Goblin Argle Bargle. All right, look, straight up. Okay. I love Louise. Louise is awesome. She's amazing. Hung out with her a bunch at AdeptCon, had a wonderful time. I really do like hanging out with her. I think she's like just a genuinely wonderful person. I hit her up like 5 times on social media before the game launched and said, like, we've got this thing. You're going to really dig it. You should hit me back. And, just like it got lost in the shuffle. And I talked to her in person. She was like, oh my gosh, I'm sorry I didn't get back to you. I just, got like she's busy with a lot of things. Like because she's working on her own, her minis and her channel and all of that. So I don't blame her at all. Like she's super crazy busy.
I assume that she hates me.
Yeah. So that was why. Like she apologized and was like, "Oh gosh, I'm sorry. I wanted to get back to you. I just got caught up in stuff." And I'm like, "Yeah, totally get it." Right? Like again, as somebody who's regularly doing 3 jobs, I understand because yes, my thought was exactly the same. I was like, "This is so Louise. She would love this." Right? And I very much wanted to do the thing, but life just didn't work out that way. But if I ever get a chance to work with her, I would jump at it in a heartbeat. I just think she's a magnificent human being. Okay. So there you go. That's what happened there.
As an aside, it is worth noting of our games, even though this is not like financial success, Death Wizard is still our highest ranked game.
Oh yeah, because that's another way to rate it, right? On Board Game Geek, yeah.
Right.
Oh sure,
yeah.
Death Wizard has an 8.3, right?
8.2, yeah.
8.2. Okay.
And then Rain in Hell is a 7.9, and then Space Station Zero is a 7.8. That said, even though Space Station Zero is a 7.8, it has a higher overall ranking, and it seems to be more liked by fans than the other games.
It would naturally bifurcate more, I assume, in the scoring, where you'd get more 10s and more ones, as it were. Like it would reverse bell curve easier because it's a roguelike survival game. And some people will just get really turned off by that, but there's a good group of people that like that a lot. I mean, I'm very proud of that's very cool. I'm very proud of that our games get well reviewed on Board Game Geek. By the way, if you like our games, please review them on Board Game Vault or on Board Game Geek. It is extremely meaningful and awesome when people do that. Obviously I have no footprint on Board Game Geek, so that's all just people doing it and saying that. And it's I feel very proud to be in the pantheon we are. If you look at other games that are in that 8.0 area, it's a lot of really amazing, great games. So I feel very proud that we're creating games that are in that space. So
it was very interesting to we had a person reach out recently and be like, well, and ask us about our listings on Board Game Geek, and I didn't realize that we were on Board Game Geek because we don't make board games, but that's evident, and that's fine, that's cool. But yeah, we don't have any kind of transparency to that. We didn't put the stuff up there. It's kind of like Reddit. You're not supposed to make your own subreddit for your own thing or whatever. Someone else is supposed to do it. Probably the same thing with Wikipedia, I'm assuming, as well. But it's very cool that people have taken the time and done that. And the ratings are also super nice. Yeah.
Yes, agreed. So yes, but if you can leave a review like that anywhere, either just the number or even typing out a review on Wargame Vault or Board Game Geek, I just want to say it is truly an amazing thing in helping other people discover the game. It's so very impactful. And thank you to everybody who does that stuff. Let's see. Okay. Oh, thank you, Jim. I really do appreciate that. Really, I mean that. I super appreciate people giving our stuff reviews and votes and stuff like that. Okay. What change in testing had the most outsized impact? I have a very simple answer for Rain and Iron. You're not going to believe it. Here you go, John. You ready? Originally, the demons did not do extra damage on a critical hit. Now they do +1 damage on a critical hit. Okay. That sounds so minor, and yet it was such a big deal because it just small things like that often have a big deal because it changed the damage curve just slightly enough.
Right? Well, and you got to remember that the robots are actually benefiting from your crits because of machine learning. That's right. So you actually had to by doing that so that they didn't run away with the game, you actually needed that bonus damage.
Right. Sometimes it's just little stuff like that. And Jim, Rob's been on here a bunch of times. Chris H said, I'd love to see a podcast with you and Rob on AOS. Oh, I mean, Rob and I talk all the time.
Rob was on our show when he worked for GW.
That's right. Yeah.
It was one of GW's last live interviews that they've ever done.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, Rob's been on. Again, probably the only reason I don't have him on regularly is just scheduling, right? I mean, it's currently 4:15 in the morning in the UK. I don't think he's awake. He's a late night guy, but there you go. Yep. Oh yeah. I mean, yes, that is an accurate representation of our two attitudes, but that's okay. I have nothing but respect for him. That's what makes for fun conversation. So there you go.
Yeah. Rob and I did a Teams event at Adepticon a couple of years ago.
Yeah. It was absolutely great dude. Again, but the first time I went over there, it was not the first time. It's one of the times I went over there. I've been to England many, many times. It's just Rob and Louise were dating, but I don't think they said anything. And I was I just watched the two of them interact. I was oh, you guys are dating. You guys are going to get along well. I could just, you could just tell, they just had that click. So at any rate, all right, gentlemen, We've done this for a while. I think that's Rain and Iron. There you go. Anything else we want to talk about? Adam, anything you want to leave everybody with?
I think that I want to make it clear again that this is a standalone game. So if you've never played the first one, you don't need to. You also don't. We want to be clear. You can't use your Cabal from the first game. You can use
You
the
can use the
models.
minis. Yeah.
Oh, for sure, all day. We're not going to be able to. Yeah, but it's not like a like, oh, you can take your Cabal that got to the end of a campaign and then just slide it into Rain and Iron. Things have changed. They're in a different place. It's time's gone by. Yeah. You start, but totally feel free to use the same models that you used in your last Cabal. That's not a problem at all. And you can honestly just build the same list if you want to. You're just starting from a new spot, especially if you like to play the campaign stuff. Which a lot of people really do, and I enjoy that myself. So yeah, if you're interested, take a look at it. It's not our cheapest game; it's our second cheapest game. Rain in Hell was our cheapest game, and this one is $1 more.
Yeah, everything's getting more expensive, but we're trying to keep these games cheap and affordable. It's $11 for the PDF and $17 for the book and the PDF. So the value,
plus shipping. But yeah,
absolutely, plus shipping. Yes.
Yeah,
that's right. Miniatures Paintbrush said, "What's your favorite Rain and Iron list?" I'll answer your question real quick, Rob. Yeah. I am an Earthbound guy. I mean, that's why they won. I get to write my own fanfic, so they got to win. And so I always run Earthbound lists. I think the Succubus is an extremely powerful tool when used properly. I generally like a dual Slaughter Fiend list, and I like a Warrior Boss. That's like my go-to build if I'm gonna pick one for the demons. On the robot side, Processor Leader is generally what I like more than the other ones. I like a Healy auxiliary and a Bombard auxiliary. The Shield auxiliary is like very powerful, but I like the Healy guy actually more, just because he can dig you out of scenarios, or he can dig you out of situations you otherwise get stuck in, and then you can kind of mix to taste. But I always have at least one sniper in there. So there you go. That's my stuff. Tom, any final thoughts?
No, it's a good game. Enjoy it.
There you go.
Someone asked for if it's for Timmy, Johnny, or Spike.
Oh, yeah, good question. I think about that sometimes when we're writing our games, absolutely. And my answer is I think that all of our games have a little bit more of a Timmy's perspective because I am a little bit more of a Timmy, so that's probably true. But in general, I want to have stuff that in there for everybody, for every psychographic profile to discover. So that's why we always try to push a lot of like customization options and things like that. So Johnny can find stuff to do. Spike, certainly there are things in there to appeal to Spike if you're trying to make hardcore types of lists. I would say this one's probably more Timmy, Johnny, and less Spike would be my answer. Probably. There you go. And yeah, as far as like the people are that price sensitive, Chris, I mean, it's hard to say. We just want to keep passing along a good deal to people. Like, I don't know. I don't have the way to collect data on that. We just want to make affordable games that people can buy easily.
We want to make our rules as accessible as possible, which is what I kind of answered in the chat there.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
and so that we don't want to, like, if we could just give them away, but we do spend a lot of time on them and also spend money on art and the whole deal and things like that. So, but on the other hand, we're not charging, like, Death Wizards, or sorry, no, Majestic 13 is our most expensive game. It's $21, but it's 144 pages.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally more expensive because it's such a big book. Like, it just
exactly.
Yep.
It just has to be. So, pages cost money.
Yeah, exactly, absolutely. And so we're not trying to lose money, but we're also not trying to like make a ton of money, particularly.
Yeah, I'm not trying to pay off my house with this or something. Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, hey, everybody, check it out. Rain and Iron, everything, as I said, down below. You can find the links. Just go to the website. Everything's there. Battle Report is there on the website, as well as the blog post that Adam talked about for finding miniatures for the game. Everything like that you need is right down there in the description. Go check it out. As I said, $11 for the PDF, $17 for the book plus PDF, plus shipping, obviously. Boy, again, just more proof of we're bad capitalists. We went 2 hours and 18 minutes into the show or something before we mentioned the price. Good stuff. But at any rate, I do thank you, as I said, and thank you for everybody who's left reviews and stuff like that. That really does help. Check out Snarlcast if you want to go deeper on how we make games. You can find that down below. The new episode just came out on Monday, Adam and I's podcast if you want to hear more of Adam and I talking. And then, of course, there's also Fireball the Gazebo. If you're an RPG person, that is also linked down there. So check out all that stuff linked down there. So many things to do, so many activities down there. But I hope you all enjoy the game. If you have any questions we didn't answer, just drop them in the comments. Always answer every comment. But otherwise, I will say thank you very much for watching, everybody. We'll be back to our normal AOS content next week. So we'll be back there. But otherwise, as always, we'll see you next Wednesday.